You're listening to the Zach Lowe Show, sponsored by FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook has made it easier than ever to get in on the action during an NBA playoff game. That's right now, even after tip-off. Just look for the live SGP tab on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and build your bet slip. Then sit back, relax, and track the outcome of your parlay right in the app. And if you don't already have it, download the FanDuel app today to make every moment more. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 and over and present in select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Coming up on the Zach Lowe Show, Howard Beck and I react to everything that happened over the weekend in the NBA. Warriors-Rockets Game 7, Clippers-Nuggets Game 7, Pacers-Cavs Game 1. We look ahead to everything coming up in round 2 of the NBA playoffs, which should be awesome. Plus, a special guest from my favorite current television show. I can't wait to talk hoops and Severance with him. Coming up on the Zach Lowe Show. Welcome to the Zach Lowe Show Monday. We are live on YouTube, apparently. I don't really know how any of this works, but I know this. It is time to say the 3 most anticipated words in niche basketball podcasting and apparently live streaming. What up, Beck?
What up, Zach? We've never done this live before. It's I don't know. I'm a little nervous. There are people watching it. We can't like edit. We can't like just stop and say, no, get rid of that. I sounded like a moron. If I sound like a moron in real time, I'm just going to sound like a moron for all time, apparently.
Hey, listen, you talk into a microphone long enough and often enough, you're going to sound like a moron. It's going to happen.
It's sadly the case.
2 Game 7s over the weekend. Warriors-Rockets. Your boy picked Warriors in 7 and said the Warriors have done rude things on that floor in elimination games before. And they did it again, just like in 2018, all the missed threes. 2019, Steph has 1 million points in the second half after having no points in the first half. And 6 years later, with Buddy Hield in the role of Klay Thompson, Draymond Green in the role of Draymond Green with a technical foul and limbs flailing everywhere and always connecting with sensitive body parts, and Steph Curry playing the part of Steph Curry. And I saw some people online, Howard Beck, saying, ooh, the media really talking up Steph. Oh, big deal, 22 points. 22 points, 10 rebounds. 10 rebounds, big deal. 7 assists, 8 of 16, 4 of 10. Every dagger that they needed, he got them. And the Warriors' entire defense was anybody but Steph. We're trapping you on the pick and roll. We're giving you absolutely no breathing room off the ball. We're switching everything. We're dialed in. How are you going to score? And for a while in the third quarter, the answer was, we may not be able to score. And they would trap him. And the other guys who are not great vertical finishers, who are sometimes not great shooters, were kind of like, I don't want to shoot it. I don't want to shoot it. Draymond, can you take another end of shot clock 3? Because those are going great. And then Steph decided, you know what? I might have to take matters into my own hands. And he got Jabari Smith Jr. on him, bringing the ball up early in the fourth quarter, and waved everyone away and said, I got it. Blew by him, layup. Next possession, Amen Thompson pulls up with the calf. Steph crosses him over into an ISO 3, and the game was kind of never really the same after that. Yeah, I thought he had a sensational game, and the Rockets offense, all their worst nightmares came true throughout the entire series, minus a couple Van Vliet hot shooting games and one Jaylen Green hot shooting game out of 7. And they are going home, and the Warriors are moving on to face the Wolves. Fun game, tense game. Felt like the Rockets were the classic young team that was walking down the old guys, and the old guys were getting tired. And then Steph got hot, and they made enough plays late in the game.
It's fun. I think I had Warriors in 7 as well. Like much respect to the Rockets, who are physical and athletic and feisty, and obviously a lot younger than the Warriors, and gave them everything they had. And like, listen, when was the last time you and I saw Steph even just have to work this hard throughout the course of a series just to score? And there were times where, like Game 6, after game 6, we always overreact. Game 6, it was like, all right, there's no way. The Warriors are just done. They're cooked. Like
Game 6 was legitimately alarming. To give away game 5 and be like, we're just going to save everything for game 6 and just come out with zero juice at home and get rolled at the end of the game. It was legitimately like, oh, do they have enough left to finish this series?
There were a bunch of shots that Steph took in game 6 where it was like, these are absolute desperation shots that if anybody else were taking them, you would think this team is screwed and that guy shouldn't even be taking those shots. But because they were Steph, it was like, these are all shots he could make. And these are all shots that when he's on one of his Steph heaters, he just does make. And like, hey, maybe they close it out in 6 if Steph just makes really tough Steph shots that only Steph can make. But still, it was the desperation that it felt like hung over every single one of those. There was a point where several times in this series, but especially in game 6, Zach, I kept having flashes of you're obviously a Top Gun fan. We're all Top Gun fans. It's our generation.
I still haven't seen Maverick, the quote unquote new one. I haven't seen.
Very good. I disagree with people who think it's better than the original, but whatever. I'm trapped in the 80s. There's the moment in the original where Goose is back there going, do some of that pilot shit, Mav. I felt like that was the Warriors the whole time in this series. Like, do some of that pilot shit, Steph. Like, just get us out of this. Because he was the only thing that they could rely on until game 7, Buddy healed. Game 7, Buddy healed. Holy shit. 9 threes, record, all-time record for a game 7. He also had, where's my Justin Kubatko stat here? Justin Kubatko says he's the second player to score 30 or more points on 80% field goal shooting in a game 7.
It's good. It's good. It's a good percentage.
The other one, of course, is Wilt Chamberlain back in 1965.
Well, and they needed it because they were running out of players. Gary Payton II was sick, missed the game. Quentin Post gradually rendered not playable in the series and played 3 minutes. Kuminga, I don't know if we're going to see Jonathan Kuminga again. Although he's played a lot against Minnesota in the regular season.
Or in whose uniform?
And his size is important potentially in that matchup. It was a disaster. And Looney was awesome off the bench. Moody, who I think they're going to really need in this Minnesota series, looked a little overwhelmed by the moment, and his misses were like bonk off the backboard, bonk, like not even close misses. And without Buddy Hield, they don't win the game. And Buddy Hield went bananas. They lost him in the zone a few times, made a couple contested twos, which were big shots. Every basket felt like oxygen at times in this game for the Warriors when the Rockets were kind of walking them down and Şengün was imposing his size. He was only 9 of 23. I also want to shout out Draymond, by the way. I made fun of the threes, and he made 2, and then he missed 6. 5 of 7 on 2s. That's a lot of 2-point baskets for Draymond Green, and they were mostly not easy shots. All of those were like oxygen.
I was trying to look up as we were talking because I forgot to look it up yesterday. When's the last time Draymond Green took 15 shots in a game at all? Actually, happened back in
20. He had
March.
20 in a game recently. In this series, I think he had 20 in a game.
Yeah, it's a lot. And every time he shot, I just kept thinking, how, why, what? There's got to be a better alternative than this. But they got away with it, and he made enough of them. But it's a statement about where the Warriors are right now, Zach, that so many times in this series, and granted, a lot of this has to do with the Rockets, but the Wolves have a great defense too, and we'll get to them. But the fact that the Warriors, even with Jimmy Butler, seem so Steph dependent. And again, I know Buddy Hield went nuclear. I don't know how many of those you can expect in the course of a postseason. Draymond Green made a bunch of shots that we wouldn't normally expect him to even be taking. But the Podziemski, Moody, Kuminga, Post, whatever, like that whole young crew that has been grafted on, that you're hoping for somebody to pop. And it doesn't have to be the same guy every night. We know how the playoffs goes. Like, sometimes it's just a guy's night. Okay, it was Buddy Hield's night, but in the next series, I'm very curious to see where this goes because it's getting late for Steph to just be the do that pilot shit Mav Steph.
Butler had such an interesting series and interesting game 7. 20 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 of 13 shooting, made a couple big jump shots late in the game. He doesn't feel like Jimmy Butler to me yet. And you look at the numbers and he's averaging 18, 6 and 4, still getting to the line 7 times a game, making his 2s. And again, he's recovering from an injury that maybe he'd be sitting out right now if this were not the playoffs. It didn't feel, despite the numbers, like he was imposing his will on the game the way we've seen him do in the playoffs before. Then now, granted, the Rockets are a very physical team. They do not have a lot of guys you can bully. Even Van Vliet is like a fire hydrant in the play. Van Vliet really became like Kyle Lowry 2.0. It's bizarre how similar they are as players on both ends of the floor after playing together, of course, in Toronto. Van Vliet got him in the post once and took the ball away in the second half of it was the second half of the game. But they're to beat Minnesota, they're going to need the Jimmy Butler who can pop off for 35 on a moment's notice. And it just didn't feel like he was that guy in the series, which is why they needed Hield. And Podziemski and Moody are going to be up and down on threes. That's just how it is. And that's why they needed Buddy Hield, and they got Buddy Hield. Can I tell you my favorite Steph play from the game, by the way?
Hit me.
The threes are cool. We all know he hit the one from the logo in the first half on a pick and roll that the Rockets didn't see coming. And by the time you see it coming, it's like, oh, it's in the net. Okay, fine. Just a classic 35-footer from Steph. If you go back, there's about a minute left in the third quarter. And this is when the Warriors are starting to extend the lead back from 3 to like 9. And boy, did a 9-point lead in this series feel like 20 at times. And Steph sets an off-ball screen and on Draymond's guy, and Draymond gets a layup in the lane. And you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that a million times before. Like Steph is the greatest little guy screener of all time. We all know the power of the best shooter of all time setting screens and what it does for the rest of his teammates. The screen was on Steven Adams. And if you go back and watch it, it is shoulder to shoulder. Both of them are kind of accelerating into the screen, and it rocks both. Like they both vibrate from the impact. And you're like, that's Steph Curry. How much weight is he giving up there? 80 pounds, 100 pounds? I don't even know what it is. Being like, I am going to throw my body, my little skinny body, he's stronger than you think, but still, into a guy that is considered the toughest, strongest, least movable human playing basketball. And by the way, what a redemption season for Steven Adams. What a wonderful story, him coming back to health and blocking shots. Like he and Nick Batum are blocking everything left and right. RIP Clippers. Like, don't just overlook the sacrifice of a play like that. Screening Steven Adams that hard, that fucking hurts. And that's not easy. Like if I did that, I'm out for 3 weeks. Just one screen on Steven Adams when he hits me back, I'm out for 3 weeks. It's a big deal that he does stuff like that. And if you go back and watch that play, it's a hard-ass screen. And that's the kind of stuff that this guy's been doing for a decade and a half now. And it just should be lauded. And it got Draymond an easy bucket. And again, oxygen. Draymond Green baskets, oxygen.
By the way, I looked it up while we were doing this on StatHead. Draymond Green, the last time in a playoff game, he had more than 15 field goal attempts, Zach. Care to guess?
Game 7, 2016.
Game. It's 2018.
Yeah.
Against the Pelicans. But there's only been 10. He's played in a lot of playoff games. He's only had 10 games, counting yesterday's, where he had 15 or more field goal attempts. So, normally I would have considered that to be very alarming. And it was in real time for the Warriors on some level, because it was sometimes the only shot they could get. And sometimes it was just, they got really weirdly indecisive at times. And so I think you noted this earlier, just like a lot of times it was Draymond taking those shots very late in the shot clock. But I thought that when they were at their best yesterday, some of it was just the fact that with two guys always on Steph, with or without the ball, it seemed like he was making faster decisions with that. They were taking advantage of Draymond then, cutting into the lane. So it felt like the Warriors adjusted in real time in this series and found a way to actually beat this just absolutely suffocating, big, physical, athletic defense. Not for nothing, we should mention, of course, Amen Thompson hurting his quad, hamstring. What do they end up calling it? Calf?
I don't know.
Calf.
It was calf during the game. I didn't see it after the game.
It was his leg. It was a leg, something leg oriented. That was unfortunate.
The improbable mid-series playoff leap from Amen Thompson, who was a little skittish the first couple games, and then was like, "Oh no, here's the regular season version of me, but better for the last part of the series." On Draymond, he had a steal. In this game with 2.5 minutes left in the second quarter. Just an absolutely classic Draymond play. When I say that Draymond is a savant, these are the kind of plays I'm talking about. Şengün had the ball at the nail on, I think Butler was guarding him. Draymond was on Thompson in the dunker spot. And Steven Adams was at the opposite dunker spot. And Şengün's working on the nail, carving out, getting closer. It was very laborious for Şengün the whole series. So much physicality. He's already sort of an awkward player in a good way, but still awkward. He's getting a little traction. And Draymond makes a little stunt towards Steven Adams, like across the lane. Just a little stunt. I don't know why he was doing it. Maybe to help out on a potential box out. Maybe to just trick Şengün. And Şengün picks the ball up and begins a pass to Thompson. Draymond's way. So, he's open. I'm going to hit him. Draymond is retreating to Amen Thompson in a blur before the ball is even out of Şengün's hands. I watched it multiple times. He's already heading back to steal the pass before it's out of Şengün's hands, and he just intercepts it like a defensive back. And speaking of finding a way, don't forget Steph had 2 baskets in the second half where he just sort of like wriggled his way under the basket and lots of traffic and just sort of kept wriggling and burrowing and just flipped shots off the backboard. It's like, my God, great win for the Warriors. And by the way, an absolute home run for them to be here. I wrote last year the sort of obit of the Warriors after they got eliminated in the play-in tournament when they had now missed the playoffs. 3 of the previous 5 years, they had missed the playoffs. They had big decisions on Clay and all that coming up. And I wrote in there, like, the fairy tale ending probably already happened. It was the 2022 championship. That might have been that was probably the fairy tale ending, because this is what happens to old championship teams, even ones that get shots at the top of the draft like the Warriors had, and they missed it with Wiseman, and they tried to trade that pick too, and they couldn't find anything great for it. They get older, and the young guys who are coming up are not ready in time for the old guys who are coming out. You get expensive. You got to cut costs. Everyone else is coming and rising up. And the best case scenario was probably like striking gold on some trade. And if it's a game changer, franchise changer, fine. Is Jimmy Butler that? I don't know if he's quite that, but he's very, very good. But the most likely scenario was, and it's a positive one, that the Warriors are a good team in a stacked conference that is able to win a round, maybe win 2 rounds, play meaningful basketball late in Steph Curry's career, probably never win the title again, but go out with honor and competition. And this is the A+ best case scenario. They're doing that, and they turned Wiggins and a minor draft asset and some other stuff into a great, great player. Not quite like Giannis or they flirted with Durant. They tried to trade for Anunoby a couple years ago. They flirted with everybody. But Butler's better than Anunoby, obviously. It should be obvious. And here they are. And this is for Steph's twilight, given the typical track record of aging championship teams, given that the 2 timelines thing, which was an accident to begin with, of like totally not planned and not intentional, hasn't really yielded much in terms of production from the young guys. One of those 2 timeline guys is Poole, and he got punched right off the team. This is just they may not win another game. They may not win another round. I'm going to pick Minnesota in the next round. This is A+ Steph twilight season, the best they could possibly have hoped for.
Yeah, all of that being true, I think the one thing I keep thinking about the last couple of years with Steph, with LeBron, those 2 in particular, when dynasties crash or when superstars, all-timers, top 10 all-timer types, eventually fade into, I don't want to say irrelevance, but are no longer a postseason threat, right? It's usually because they themselves have eroded, right? Like Kobe wasn't nearly the same his last couple of years in the league. Bird, Magic, Kareem, anybody you can think of, aside from Michael and Scotty. Michael and Scotty go out, at Michael still looking sort of like peak of his powers, and Scotty still had good seasons left with Portland and Houston after that. But Steph is still awesome at 37, and LeBron is still awesome at 40, and they're both
I put Steph on my first team All-NBA ballot.
I think I had him on my real ballot, All-NBA first team, and LeBron, I think, made second team. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they both were on my ballot. So in past decades of the NBA, literally the entirety of the NBA up until now, this is not possible. And so the difference in this construction of, well, hey, this is just what happens with great teams. You get to the end, and yeah, it's nice if you could just make the second round. The difference is that Steph and LeBron are both still playing at a level where if you can get the right guys around them, and yes, all the other stuff is true, especially in today's salary cap environment. It's hard to keep a team together. It's hard to keep building. It's hard to find young talent when you're always drafting low or you've traded all your picks for help in the immediate term. All of that's true, except that in the case of LeBron and Steph, in possibly the first time in NBA history, you've got guys in their late 30s and in LeBron's case 40 who are still viable as key members of a potential contender. And that part's different. And that part puts a different kind of urgency on their front offices, which we've seen. That's why you go get Jimmy Butler. Luka kind of, I don't want to say fell in their lap, but he fell in their lap for the Lakers. But it definitely changes the way you calibrate. It's not just, it'd be nice to just be competitive for his last couple of years. It's no, you've got an imperative to still try to make deep runs and be a contender.
Let's talk about the Rockets, because we're now going to enter a very important offseason for them as they are running out of time to have cap flexibility. They, in fact, probably will not have much, if any, cap room this summer, depending on Van Vliet's $44 million team option. And they need Fred VanVleet. I mean, that was hammered home in this series. They either need Fred VanVleet or the equivalent of a steady hand like Fred VanVleet,
he was awesome.
or else they're toast on offense. They're already kind of toast. They're whatever is below toast. Crumbs, crust, unwanted crust. I don't know. And obviously the speculation is going to focus on two guys. And one is Kevin Durant. The price point will be much lower for him than it will be for if Giannis Antetokounmpo. And the Giannis stuff is going to run wild, right? We know this. We know that Houston's got a bucket of young players and a bucket of draft picks, including Phoenix's pick this year in the lottery, Phoenix's pick in 27, and two of Phoenix, Dallas, and their own pick, the best two in 2029, plus all their own picks, essentially, except for this year's and all the swaps. So that's a lot of stuff. And it's important for the Bucks to get picks from as many different teams as possible if they trade Giannis. So they're betting against not the team Giannis is going to, but a little bit that team, but teams across the league, like maybe Phoenix, whose future is uncertain. And if I'm Milwaukee, here's the question I'm posing to you. If I'm Milwaukee, I just watched this series. Here are the 7 crown jewel young players that the Rockets have on their team. Şengün, I thought didn't shoot well, but I thought he was up for the moment. Tough, physical, is a real dude. Amen Thompson, untouchable. You're just not getting him. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cam Whitmore didn't play. Reed Shepherd didn't play. Jaylen Green played horribly. Tari Eason and Jabari Smith are good players. I am a Tari Eason fanboy. What are they long-term is somewhat unknown. Well, Eason is frenetic with the ball, had some bad turnovers last night. He's a great energy player. He can shoot threes. He rebounds the hell out of it. Is he ever going to be steady enough with the ball in his hands to be more than, and this is not a bad outcome for him, but like a really good role player? Jabari Smith Jr., same thing. Houston hasn't really developed him as a 5 or like a ball handling semi wing. He's sort of just been lost there as finding, and he's good at what he, like, I love Jabari Smith Jr. He's about the right things. He can make shots. What is he long term? This is all leading me to, if I'm the Bucks or if I'm the Rockets, whatever, can I get this trade done without including Şengün? I'm not including Thompson. Can I get a Giannis trade done without including Şengün? Are the remaining pieces and picks appealing to me enough as Milwaukee? So I'm talking something like Eason, Smith, Green, and all the picks, the 3 Phoenix picks, Houston's picks. Is that enough? Because if I'm Houston, if I'm Milwaukee, and I'm looking at, okay, like Jaylen Green, well, we just got through like a horrible playoff series. Eason and Smith I just went on. If I don't get Şengün and Thompson, I'm really doing the trade mostly for the picks, if not entirely for the picks. Is that enough for Giannis? And conversely, if I'm Houston, I really want to keep Şengün because I want to have a really good team around Giannis when he gets here. And if I don't have him and I don't have Amen Thompson, it's like Jaylen Green and VanVleet and all these dudes who haven't played, like Whitmore and Reed Shepherd. I think that's a really interesting conversation. My prediction, and obviously there would be a bidding war for Giannis.
Yeah.
My prediction is I bet Houston could thread the, I don't know if I actually don't know, because another wild card here is if Giannis and Milwaukee decide it's time, I think Milwaukee will send him someplace where he wants to go.
Yeah.
And if Houston is on that list, that obviously helps Houston's leverage a little bit. If I had to bet, I don't feel great about it. I would bet Houston could get it done while keeping Şengün and Thompson, just because the picks are so valuable coming from Phoenix and potentially Dallas and Houston's own picks. Like if I get 7 first-round picks and 5 swaps and whatever it ends up being, and those picks are triangulated around the league, maybe I can trade some of those picks to get one of my own picks back so I can tank properly and I get some interesting young prospects. It's palatable, but I think that the Şengün piece to me is the very interesting. It's not like he and Giannis are a great fit offensively. You can nitpick that, but talent is talent. Şengün is really good. He's on a good contract. I want to keep him if I'm Houston, and I am definitely keeping Amen Thompson.
So some of this is going to depend on, one, does Giannis ask out? Because you're not going to proactively just trade him probably, right? It's the Damian Lillard conundrum where it's like, maybe we should have moved off of him sooner, but you can't trade Damian Lillard unless he asks to be traded. Oh, he has to be traded. Cool. All right, now let's move. I think it's the same thing with Milwaukee. Does Giannis ask out? If he does he have a list? I poked around a little bit a few days ago, and the initial thing I got from one person was just like, some rumblings that it's already just the big cities. It's one of the LA teams or one of the New York teams, or maybe Miami, not big market but glamour market, mid-sized market. I think they threw Chicago in there. I can't remember if Houston came up. It should. So first is like, where does Giannis want to go, and do they honor that? Because again, back to Dame, you're not obligated to honor it. The second piece then is, so what does the bidding war look like? You can say, well, Amen Thompson's untouchable, Şengün's untouchable. Well, it depends on what other teams are offering that you might have to be bidding against, right? But you're right. I agree with you. The picks alone, the Suns picks alone, should put Houston in the lead because you can do those picks plus some very good, promising young players, even if it's not the two untouchables you listed. I will just say, though, I agree. Amen Thompson, absolutely positively untouchable. I don't think Şengün's untouchable.
No, I mean, we'll see. And again, like it sounds ridiculous to say Amen Thompson's untouchable for Giannis. Well, if he's touchable, that means Şengün is also touchable because Amen Thompson is a more important trade asset right now than Şengün.
Yeah.
And you just get to the point where, as exciting as trading for Giannis, who's only 31, I think, is, if you gut the entire present and future, or like 75% of both to get him, you're going to be left with a team that may not be good enough, and you're going to have cost yourself a lot of future assets. Like, you have to maintain, and this is a guy who has had injuries in like 3 of the last 4 playoffs, whose jump shot mid-ranger came along this year, but that the aging curve of someone without a jump shot is not as great as someone with a great jump shot. I'm just saying, like, it's tempting to throw the whole boat at all of these guys when they become available because the names are so exciting. You got to hold on to what you can hold on to, because you have to get them in the door in a place where you are at or close to the inner circle of championship contention. And it's nice to say Giannis and Reed Shepherd and Cam Whitmore and Şengün and whatever is there. Like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And by the way, Reed Shepherd should not just be glossed over as just a sort of another guy that's been thrown in here. Cam Whitmore's had 2 seasons to earn Ime Udoka's trust and hasn't. Reed Shepherd walked in as a rookie, undersized, going to have some defensive challenges on a team that won 52 games. He's still a really high wattage prospect who was the number 3 pick. And as much as teams talking to Houston will try to be like, well, how valuable is he? He couldn't play for you guys. He's valuable. He's like a real legit trade asset, as is this Phoenix pick, which, by the way, we don't even know where it's going to be until a week from today when the lottery happens. And we're going to find out if that pick could be 3, 4, 8, 10, wherever it ends up falling is a big deal.
Yeah, if you're the Rockets, if you're any team trading for Giannis, to your point, you can't trade away so much that you're now scrambling to try to backfill around him, both for your own sake and the window that you have with him, but also for Giannis' sake. Giannis is not going to want to go somewhere where they just gave up all of their best rotation players, or half their starting, or 3/4 of their starting, 3/5 of their starting lineup, which is why, like, the Nets, I'm still not sure I'm sold on the Nets as a destination for Giannis here in my backyard, because what do you have to trade for him other than they do have a boatload of picks, including their own? And I think they still have at least a couple of those Phoenix picks and some other stuff. I think there's a Philly pick in there somewhere. Like, the Nets have a lot of draft capital, but if you gave up, Claxton and Cam Johnson, well, then who is Giannis playing with, and why does he want to be there? So, like, there is that issue. The other thing that's interesting to consider here is, like, how do the Bucks value some of what, in Houston's case, they have to offer? Like, how are teams viewing Jaylen Green right now? Because, whatever, number 2 overall pick a couple years ago.
I was listening to Bill and Ryan last night.
I haven't heard them yet, but like this was
Bill
disastrous.
Bill posited is Jaylen Green worth a top 5 pick in this draft? He said no, I don't think so. I'm like, I was sitting there being like, What? No, not even close. Not even close.
Was that, by the way, was that Jaylen Green with the towel on his head? Toward the end, Jabari Smith was patting somebody on the head with the towel on his head on the bench toward like the last few minutes, like just kind of disconsolate. I think that was Jaylen Green.
I didn't see it.
I think
I didn't see it, but yeah.
No, I like that he cares, and I the kid's got a lot of personality and a lot of passion. I don't know about his basketball judgment and his learning curve so far, and there's results vary depending on who you talk to in the league on things like this. But once you've been in the league for a couple of years, if you haven't quite popped, if it hasn't quite come together, it doesn't mean that it won't later. Guys bloom at various times, but especially when you're a really high lottery pick and you're expected to have like the huge leap, if it hasn't happened, doubts start to creep in among analytics guys, among scouts about, well, this guy, it's probably just not going to happen. And so do the Bucks look at him as still a blue chip type prospect who may blossom here? Or do they look at him as like, great athlete, not a great player?
So when I wrote about him last year, he was my most interesting player going into the season in the league. And I don't pick superstars or rookies. It was a targeted pick. The most common comps to him, and this was among like mild optimists to tepid optimists for Jaylen Green, were, well, is he just going to be, not just because you can't say just about guys who have made all-star teams, but does he top out as like Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, like a guy who scores a lot of points and it's unclear how much they help you win high-level basketball games. And I thought that was an interesting comp. Look, this year was a disappointment. I mean, he was fine in the regular season. It wasn't the leap that I thought would happen. It was a mini leap, but the passing judgment was the same. Defensively, I thought he improved a lot and was not out of place in this series. I thought he was pretty good. It's just the passing decision-making just isn't there. And he's very young, still very young, and he's super athletic. And finding your way on a team that's trying to win with the demanding coach is not easy. There's also the alternative where you just say, hey, it's easy to trick yourself into being like, well, we were the 2 seed. We're very, very close. Like, we really have to make an all-in move now. You were the 2 seed, but the difference between 2 and 7, both in terms of wins and net rating, is not enormous. What you really were was a middle-of-the-pack Western Conference playoff team who happened to win a few more regular season games than expected and a few more regular season games than some of your rivals. And I think you need to look at it from that perspective rather than, well, we're the 2 seed. 2 seeds are contenders. You were the 2 seed and you were very close to 7 and not anywhere in the universe of 1. And so the alternative of just doing nothing and standing pat is, I think, a viable one for them. It's not the one that I expect them to take, though. It's
an interesting debate right now for the Rockets. There's already been talk about the Pistons going to make an all-in move. Like, I think for Detroit, like they're even earlier. I know both of them just made their playoff debuts with their respective Thompson twins. But like with the Pistons, it's you already have your guy. Cade is the guy. And the Pistons have all these really interesting young players who have a lot of upside still. They just broke through. In the Pistons case, and I wrote about this on theringer.com last week, that Detroit should just chill. Like, you don't need to make any all-in moves right now. The Rockets, it's a little bit different. You mentioned there's the cap issues and a bunch of young guys who all need extensions. But there's also just the fact that they have these pieces to work with, right? A plethora of interesting young rotation guys. All those picks, the Suns picks.
A plethora of piñatas. Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas? You don't know, you're older than me and you don't know that from The Three Amigos?
Oh my God. That's one of those movies I saw like exactly once. Whenever the hell that was,
probably problematic now.
Probably, almost certainly, it might have been problematic in real time.
10-year-old me did not understand why it was potentially problematic. Maybe I haven't seen it since then, so maybe it's not. Anyway, you have a plethora of something you were going to say.
I just want to know: do you think that? Let me put it to you. I do think that the Rockets, yes, there's a path there where they could just play it cool and be methodical about this and just see where this goes and let guys keep ascending. I think there's a case for pedal to the metal. I think there's a case for if you're the team that Giannis, if you're on his list,
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's an opportunity here.
There's a case. Okay. Less interesting is the future of the Clippers, who, as we turn to the other Game 7, got embarrassed on the road in Denver by 1,000. I don't know what the final score ended up being. It was 1,000,000 points.
Lots.
Watched the game with my daughter because I was solo with her. We got to watch it live together. She had a lot of questions about a lot of different things. It was great. And
is she worried about James Harden's postseason resume and reputation?
She likes James Harden because of the beard, and I had to explain to her the history of James Harden in games like this, which has continued apace.
You wrote about it very well a couple of years back, and I've cited it many times in the last couple of days. In fact, had to text it to somebody to note that the large overview of playoff Harden to regular season Harden does not do justice to just how bad he's been at critical times in the postseason, which you documented well.
You can caveat it all the way around. Like, well, he's had some great game ones and game threes that we just don't remember because they end up losing the series. That's true. Game 3 in 2019 against the Warriors stands out, a 41-point game in a series they end up losing in 6. He's had some other great playoff. He had two big shots in game 1 of this series, which ends up being one of 2 incredibly regrettable losses for the Clippers. I almost said the Rockets, the Clippers. He was great against Dallas in game 4, clutch shot after clutch shot, and then melted down in games 5 and 6. I'm sorry that going for 40 when you're down 3-0 to the Warriors is cool and potentially clutch if you come back, but you don't. And I'm sorry that game 6 and game 7 are more important than games 1 and game 2. I'm sorry that the fourth quarter is more important than the first quarter. You can tell me every basket, every possession is equally important. They're all very important. Games can be decided in the first quarter and the second quarter, but when they're close and time is finite, every possession does carry a heavier weight. And the statistics are what they are. And since I wrote that article, Howard Beck, that was 2020.
Gosh, that long ago.
2021, one of Harden's great playoff moments, guts it out for the Nets against the Bucks on one leg and plays the entirety of game 6 and game 7 and plays as well as possible. Awesome moment. 2022, Philly, Miami, the ball never found me. Okay. 2023, Philly, Boston, 3 of 11 in game 7, 4 of 16 in game 6. The entire team no-shows game 7. Last season, I went through 2 of 12, game 5. I'm sorry that it's true. And he had 13 assists. Awesome. They were forcing him to pass, but he's a great passer. The whole team played with such a malaise in that game that I will say this, their future is not interesting. They're going to have to decide on Harden. He's got a player option. Do they bring him back? They do not have a lot of maneuverability with this team. We always thought this team was sort of a placeholder, competitive, fun, Inuit Dome until they get their picks back, which they don't control till 2031, and can really, or they get cap space and can lure a free agent the way they did Kawhi. And it turned out for a while to be better than that. It was an elite team for half the season once Kawhi came back, and a 50 win team that, people are going to shit on them, deservedly so, for the way they played in game 7. They ended up playing an awesome team in the first round of the playoffs with the best player in the world and lost in game 7. Not a shameful outcome. And Ty Lue said after the game, look, I'd love to have Harden and Kawhi for a full season. Harden did a great job carrying the load without Kawhi. Then we got Kawhi back. All these signings on the fringes, they nailed. And I'm like, cool, I'd love you to have Harden and Kawhi together for a full season. There's really not much evidence to suggest that that's ever going to happen. This could end up being the best case scenario for this, what I've called the placeholder Clippers team. Really good season, really fun season, should be lauded. However, I think it's actually okay to, quote, overreact to one game and say this taints the whole thing. This taints my view of Harden. Again, this taints my view of Kawhi, who was great early in the series and just okay the rest of the series. I think it's okay when a game is this important and you get outplayed that badly to say, you know what, that colors my view of your entire season and colors my view of, is this just going to be what we thought it was, which is a fun, competitive placeholder as they likely bring back Harden and wait for cap flexibility down the line. That was an awful, awful loss. And it does color my perception of the Clippers season. Sorry to be the guy overreacting to one game. It's game 7 and you sucked. From top to bottom, you sucked.
Yeah. I will go back to October when I said on the Real Ones podcast when we were doing some, Raja and I were doing some predictions for the season. And I declared, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically had written off the Clippers entirely. I wasn't sure they were even making the play-in tournament. Or maybe they were a play-in team. I had written them off pretty definitively, just because, letting Paul George walk proves to be the right smart thing for cap reasons, for competitive reasons, for all kinds of reasons. But having been completely invested in Kawhi and an aging James Harden, and then, I like the offseason, Derek Jones Jr., nice, Batum's coming back great. Like, all that's fine, but I didn't see enough upside there, especially given that we never know how many games Kawhi is going to play. So, confession, I wrote them off way too soon. I was incredibly wrong about the Clippers. They were fantastic this season. Harden did an incredible job. Like you, I had him as an All-NBA player. He was
I had
on my
him third team on my ballot. Third team All-NBA. Deserved it.
It came down to the wire, but I ended up putting him on. So look, October view, I thought they're an afterthought. April view, they might have. I think a lot of us thought they might be the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference. And
I picked Nuggets in 7 for the record.
Yeah. So, but they had a lot. There was a lot of Clipper excitement over the last couple of months. The way they played down the stretch of the season, the last 6 to 8 weeks of the season, their defense was incredible, and Kawhi looked like 2019 Kawhi again. All of that. I'm not going to allow Game 7 to taint what happened this season, because I think this was I will. By my expectations,
I will. You play like that in a decisive playoff game. Sorry,
I think if it affects anything, it's how I look at them for the future. But I already had a kind of bleak look of their future, which is that Kawhi's under contract for 2 more years, but Kawhi is about to turn 34 next month. Harden is turning 36 in August. I don't know what he's going to be asking for. Probably a lot. He always asks for a lot. How long are you signing him for? Do you just match him up with Kawhi and then just say, oh, this is it, and just hope that each of them can play 70% of the games for the next few years? I don't know, but there's nothing really. Like, Zubac had a nice season. Norm Powell and these guys had breakthrough seasons, but there's no other upside on this team. There's nobody else who's looking to
extension eligible too, by the way. Norm Powell.
Yeah. So I just it feels like the placeholder is still just a placeholder. You could just run it back, be really competitive for as long as these guys stay healthy and on the court, and you'll be a fine, good, respectable team. But you're not a threat to anybody. You're not a contender. And I don't think you can count on 75 game seasons from Kawhi.
And we just lauded the Warriors for being a fine, respectable team who won a Game 7 on the road. The difference is the Warriors haven't given up everything draft-wise and young player-wise to become a fine, respectable team. The Clippers have, and they made the conference finals once. Kawhi was injured in the middle of that playoff run. They've had a nice run. Yesterday was a disaster. Denver, awesome performance. Aaron Gordon, shout out, just tough every game. Never have to worry about him showing up on either end. Christian Brown, ditto. We will talk more about Denver as we move forward. Greg Popovich.
Before we move off the Clips. Before we move off the Clips,
ahead.
Just a thought exercise. We don't have to get into it now, but just something to think about. Is there a pivot here now? Like, would you just is there a market for Kawhi? I've just been contemplating this the last couple of days. Is there a market for Kawhi? Could you offload him? Not re-sign James Harden? Just bring down the payroll. Figure out what to do with Zubac, Norm Powell. I know you don't have picks. I'm not saying this is a tank scenario. I just wonder if there's a pivot coming here where you recognize everything that you and I just discussed. You've already gone as far as you're going to go with this team.
I built fake Kawhi trades for a pod like last summer or something, and I don't remember what any of them were. It's not crazy, but teams just don't know if and when he's ever going to play. Greg Popovich retired. We must address that. I never got to know Greg Popovich personally. I've interviewed him a few times here or there, including for a story I wrote on Ginobili years and years ago. So I will not wax poetic about his meaning to basketball or me or whatever. I will say he's number 1 in wins of all time. Maybe the greatest coach of all time. There's a couple people who have an argument for that. And what I will remember of Greg Popovich is how ahead of the curve he and the Spurs were every time the league evolved. They rise as this defense-first juggernaut, just impossible to score on. And Pop would have been the first one to tell you, and was over and over again, that everything for him, for the franchise, starts and ends with number 21, with Tim Duncan. That's it. They don't win that lottery. He's probably been fired years and years ago. Then the league lifts the hand check out of the league. It kind of bans the hand check. They immediately pivot to spread pick and roll, Tony Parker unleashed, culminating in the beautiful game of 2013 and 2014. finals appearance, championship. Heartbreak to championship. Heartbreak to Pop consoling everyone at dinner the night of Game 6, the Ray Allen game, and in the beginning of next season, making everybody rewatch the games again to prepare for the run of revenge that happened. And that team not only symbolized sort of how the Spurs had evolved, it symbolized how Pop really believed basketball should be played, which is unselfishly. No one gets to dominate the ball. It's not about you. It can be about you when it's your turn for it to be about you. It's not like you're never going to get to shoot or do cool moves. Those have to come in the context of how the game flows. And, they were ahead of the curve on corner threes along with the spread pick and roll. Like that's, I don't know Pop personally. I've heard all the stories. I've talked to all the Pop coaching tree people. That's how I will choose to remember his career. And look, obviously, Pop had a stroke. My mom had a stroke 3.5 years ago. I know how debilitating that is. Their cases are not comparable at all from what I've heard. Pop is doing very, very well. But physically, it's just super taxing, and it's not surprising to anybody, I think, that this happened. I know you have gotten to know Pop more than I have. You had a famous lockout interaction with him in 2011, I believe, on the street.
I actually missed that one.
Oh, you missed that one. Okay. But I yield the floor to you.
Yeah. I missed that Pop interaction during the lockout. There was a lockout, Pop walking down the street while the media was all doing the stakeout. I missed it because I was working for the New York Times at the time, and they had sent me to go cover a couple of Red Sox games out of the blue because the Red Sox were in some like awful death spiral that September. And so I was away that day. My most memorable Pop interaction personally was they had hired Becky Hammon. I got the opportunity to go out, sit down with Becky to do a big feature for Bleacher Report at the time. And I walk into the Spurs gym that day at practice in preseason, and Pop had just grown out the beard. And he may have done the beard before, but I remember this was like a big thing that season. Oh, Pop's back with this beard. And so I was going to get Pop for 15 minutes or so to talk about hiring Becky Hammon, what she's about, and what stuck, really stood out about her and his interactions and in the hiring process, or when he first met her on that plane ride back from the Olympics, whatever. And so practice breaks, or Pop maybe finished a scrum. So I'm walking up to him to go talk to him. And as I said hello, and I noted the beard, and I said, with that beard, you look even more intimidating than usual or something. And he just waves his hand. He goes, it's all just shtick. I loved that because so much of how people view Pop is through the prism of those sometimes tense and testy in-game interviews, which, listen, are really tough on everybody, right? Like no coach ever, very, very rarely does any coach ever say anything interesting anyway. I don't blame the sideline reporters, many of whom are my friends, but like, there's just not a lot to get out of that. And I don't blame coaches who don't want to do it. And, could Pop have been a little more graceful at times? Yes. On that note, though, like as much as he would like bust Craig Sager's balls all the time, like he also, when Sager came back from his own health issues that one year, and as soon as Pop saw him, put his arm around him, man, it's just so great to see you back. And was like, that was the essence of Pop, right? He could be acerbic. He could be crusty. He could be dismissive. He could be condescending. But there was a genuine warmth to the man too. And that duality goes for the way he handled us at times in the media. It's the way he handled players. He's the guy who could bark at you and like, get all over Tony Parker, like nearly break Tony Parker and then put his arm around him and say like, no, now go out there and kick some ass. And I love that about him. Like there was a lot of depth to the man. And I am wearing my Popovich Kerr 2020 t-shirt today in honor of Pop. And, listen, nobody has been more, has been bolder, and I think at times braver than Pop in speaking his mind about the issues facing our society, our country. I admire all that. It's among the things that I now miss with him being off the sidelines. He doesn't have the podium that he had before, the stage that he had before, to sometimes just say, you know what, guys, today I'm not talking about basketball. Today we need to talk about fill in the blank. There was a moment a couple of years back where he was at the Garden pregame for Spurs Knicks. Something big had happened that day, and I can't remember what. It might have been one of the many Tommy Tuberville things. He loved to rip Tommy Tuberville. And pregame access scrum was winding down with Pop, and there was that awkward silence that sometimes happened. He looked around, he goes, what? No one's going to ask me about what, and whatever it was. No one's going to ask me about, man, you guys. He was expecting and hoping New York media was going to do the New York media thing and ask him about other stuff. floating around, the things that he would normally gravitate to. And that's the thing. When Pop is dismissive of or shuts down a question, it's usually about like mundane, perfunctory basketball stuff that either it's a too general of a question, which, by the way, quick aside to my aside, I appreciate this about him. I don't always appreciate when coaches put us in a difficult spot where it feels awkward, but it keeps us on our toes. We're supposed to ask precise questions. We should ask more informed, intelligent, precise questions. And I've had other people in the years I've been a reporter who have done this, and it's like, in the moment it sucks, but it makes you sharper. And that day, he really wanted us to ask about whatever the political thing was. And he was disappointed. And I, like a year or two later, I saw him and I made a crack about it. And I said, what was it about? And I couldn't remember. Anyway, the totality of Pop is awesome. The last thought, and I said this on the Real Ones pod last week, he's as close as we're going to get to a Red Auerbach type figure who not only encompasses all that the Spurs were about. We were talking about Spurs culture long before Heat culture. In fact, in my memory, the Spurs are the first team in the NBA we ever started using the word culture about on a consistent, like they made it a cliche before the Heat took it to all new cliche heights. And the Spurs would tell you, Pop and RC would tell you, well, that's about Tim Duncan. None of us do anything. None of this means anything. None of us, we're not winning. We're not considered great or anything. No one's praising us if not for Duncan. All true. And Duncan encompassed a lot of what was Spurs culture, but so did Pop. And that Pop can connect all the way from the mid-90s to now the mid-2020s. Auerbach to the Celtics, especially when with Grossbeck and Steve Pagliuca brought him back. Jerry West with the Lakers for so many decades. Like, that's pretty much end of list, isn't it? Like, and there aren't that many teams where it would matter either, right? You have to have multiple eras when you were great. But to have somebody who embodies all that your franchise is about, all the great things about it, and can instill those values over and over again through multiple generations of players, that's Pop. So like there's all of it. All of it should be praised. All of it should be recognized. I don't know how ceremonial or detailed this job as president of basketball ops, which is a title he's held for a long time anyway. I hope he's still around the game. I hope he's still around the Spurs. I hope we get to still bump into him and have us snap at us for stupid questions and talk politics.
I suspect he will be. Two other quick notes before we preview the second round. NBC announced over the weekend that they are bringing back Round Ball Rock and that they are going to broadcast starting lineup introductions for games.
Oh, I missed that part.
10 out of 10, no notes.
Fantastic.
Welcome to the party, NBC. Awesome news. Okay, rapid fire second round previews, starting with Minnesota Golden State. Jimmy Butler back for vengeance against a Minnesota team where like nobody is left from when he was there. Draymond Green versus Rudy Gobert, round 17. Chokeholds, making fun of Rudy Gobert crying, all of that. Warriors Wolves, the 6-7 matchup in the second round. We're going to talk about it and make predictions. What's your first thought, Warriors Wolves?
By the way, only the third time in NBA history that there's been a 6 versus 7 matchup. Not upsets, by the way. You touched on it earlier. Not really upsets. Like it is by on paper, but it kind of isn't. Wolves defense, not quite the same as the Rockets, but just as good as the Rockets. So I don't know if the Warriors are going to have any easier time scoring now than they did in the first round. And the Wolves offense is way better, especially in the half quarter, just in general. They've got a lot more pop. I mean, Anthony Edwards is better than Jaylen Green, and Julius Randle at this point is better than Alperen Şengün. Tias. I mean, I'm as I start to think about who they have to reckon with, who you have to account for on the Warriors' defensive side of the court, is that Kevon Looney starting on Randle so that Draymond messes with Gobert? Is it Draymond on Randle? Randle can score inside and out. He's a much more, I think, confident and physical scorer than Şengün. He's a better passer, I think, at this stage too. Maybe that's close. Şengün's a very good passer.
Disagree.
No, Şengün's a very good passer. Let me take that back. Şengün's a very good passer. Randle has had teams play through him where he was effective in being that inflection point where it's coming through me and I'm deciding whether to pass or score, sometimes deciding to shoot too often. But he has played that role at a more confident level than Şengün. Not a better passer, but has used it to better effect in the past. But he had playoff experience. Draymond versus Gobert. Draymond already had a really weird first round, not weird, just but like one of those series where, at least 2-3 times in the series, it was like, is he going to get kicked out?
So all of these things, when he kicks Eason and he smacks Van Vliet, are all like, you could spin them as accidents. Like he's doing basketball stuff and then his limbs go where they go. I said this with Bill last week, and now I've figured out what it reminds me of. There's a scene in The Simpsons where Bart and Lisa are fighting, and they both say, Lisa says, I'm just going to be kicking in my room. And if like Bart, I'm just going to be kicking my feet constantly. And if Bart happens to walk in to my legs, that's on him. And Bart's like, well, I'm just going to be, I think he's punching. I don't know what he's doing. I'm just going to be punching my arms out like this. And if you happen to walk into it, well, that's on you. That's how Draymond is in these entanglements where a normal person, most players would sense a collision coming and try to be like recoil back a little bit with your arms or like not follow through the way you normally would. He's just like, I'm doing what I'm doing. Get out of the way. My follow through was coming. We're going to have a collision. Get ready. It's happening. Okay. You inadvertently nailed the first question that is on my mind for this series, which is who are the Warriors starting and can they start this small ball lineup that they've been starting off and on against the Rockets of Curry, Hield, Podziemski, Butler, Green against an enormous Minnesota team and an enormous Minnesota starting five. And it boils down to this. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green can only guard 2 of Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, and Rudy Gobert. Now, you could find ways around that while keeping the same lineup. Maybe Brandon Podziemski is fine guarding Anthony Edwards. I don't really think so, but maybe he is. Maybe Brandon Podziemski can guard Rudy Gobert, and you can toggle the matchups that way. Teams that put smalls on Gobert plenty. He just did destroy the Lakers in an elimination game doing that. I think more likely the Warriors change the starting 5 again. That could mean upsizing. It could mean Gary Payton II starts for Buddy Hield because Gary Payton II has guarded Ant quite a bit. And then you could have Butler on Randall, which I think is perfectly fine and tenable, and Draymond on Gobert, or flip them out how you want. I think Moody could start for the same reason. He's guarded Ant quite a bit. He could guard Gobert credibly if you want to, semi-credibly at least, if you want to finagle the matchups that way. Either way, I think both of those guys, particularly Moody, have a bigger role to play in this series. But every time you do that, you're sacrificing some shooting against a defense that is big and fast and mobile. So that's where I'm sort of starting in the series is how do they match up? Who do they start and how do they match up? You mentioned, the Warriors offense, and we know how they're going to attack. They're going to try to find Gobert, get him out in space, move the ball around. And that's why I mentioned Butler earlier. I think they're going to need a big Butler series to have a chance to beat Minnesota. A better Butler, a more dominant, physically imposing Butler, a Butler that's going to be like, Mike Conley, you can't be on the floor. I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Dante DiVincenzo, you're bigger than Mike Conley. I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you're even bigger and longer than DiVincenzo. I'm going to beat the hell out of you. I'm going to get to the line. I'm going to play bully ball. And if they don't see that, Jimmy, I think offense is going to be not tough for them, but just it's maybe tough. And the other upside about starting small is who does Julius Randle guard if the Warriors start small, because Gobert is probably going to guard Draymond, and well, does Julius Randle have to guard Jimmy Butler? On the other side of the floor, again, the matchups, like how much physically larger is Minnesota going to be than the Warriors, depending on who plays where, and they're going to hunt Curry, and the Warriors have switched Curry onto Ant quite a bit in previous matchups. Wiggins, by the way, was the guy who guarded Ant most of all for them, and he's obviously now gone. And Steph has stood up well against Ant in a lot of those matchups. Ant really hasn't developed the back to the basket game that I thought he would at this point. And I think, Randall going at Curry is interesting to me. Like Randall, whoever Curry is guarding, pick and rolls, because that's a guy who can hurt you on switches. Like to your point about Randall earlier, he can hurt you on switches. I just think the matchups, this is going to be a game one where I sort of sit back and soak up the matchups, because I think everything is going to flow kind of from how teams attack are going to flow from there.
And to just pull back for a second, that game one that we are so eager to see is tomorrow night. It's like, 30 something hours from now as you and I record this. And the Warriors, I imagine, either spent the night in Houston, will have a brief team meeting and then hop the plane to Minneapolis, or maybe they went straight there. I don't know. But they just had to play a grueling, physical, emotionally, physically, spiritually taxing 7-game series. And they're an older team. And now they're like, this is the worst case scenario for the Warriors as a team advancing. Obviously, worst case scenario is losing. But if you're going to advance, the last thing you needed, especially when you were up 3-1 and could have closed out and gotten some rest, you're an older team. There's I'm sure plenty of data out there about this, but the Timberwolves are young and spry and just sitting in wait and have had more time to rest since the first round. It's going to be a factor, and these are every other day schedules now. Games 1 through 4 are all every other day. No, through 5, and then if they're still going, there's a 3-4 day gap between 5 and 6. So there's not a lot of time to recover. Jimmy Butler had that bad hip, back, whatever it was from the hard landing in the Rockets series. Steph's still dealing with the hand, the finger, whatever. I do wonder how they will hold up overall, whether this series, all of the other matchups and strategy and everything else aside, how much this just comes down to whether the Warriors, the older core, have enough left against a young Wolves team.
Rapid fire, a few other things to watch. Minnesota can be turnover prone, and the Warriors have forced a lot of turnovers since acquiring Butler. Got to take care of the ball. Warriors take the second most threes in the NBA. Minnesota's defense allows the 7th fewest. That's a battleground there. How many threes can the Warriors get up? Jaden McDaniels is going to guard Steph quite a bit and has done fairly well against him. That's a really interesting matchup. Naz Reid with smaller defenders on him, something I'm watching. And just flag it. Just flag this. Because of matchups and injuries and other things, Trace Jackson Davis has a lot of experience playing against the Timberwolves. If you go back and watch games from the last 2 years, he's been on the floor for a lot of it. Wouldn't shock me if he gets dusted off a little bit in the series. Predictions. I'll go first, Howard Beck. Wolves in 6. Wolves in 6. Again, I'm picking a road team closeout. I get it. I should pick Wolves in 5. Wolves in 5 feels disrespectful to the Warriors. 7 feels too long. Wolves in 6 for some of the reasons you mentioned in terms of fatigue. Wolves move on to the conference finals.
Against all logic, I'm going to say Wolves in 7. Not all logic. I think it's just out of an abundance of respect for the Warriors and who they are and what we just saw again. And that if they're not completely fatigued and just flat out exhausted by that series, I think they're going to give the Wolves everything they can handle. So I'll say Wolves in 7. I think there's a slight chance the Warriors pull this out.
Oh, no,
there is.
Look, Warriors could absolutely win the series.
I'd be tempted to pick them, but it just feels foolish.
Well, look, the Wolves proved something to me against the Lakers, which is that they staved off the haywire factor, which I thought was going to work against them. Yeah. They were steady. Ant was very steady making decisions when they put 2 on the ball. And, the Warriors have their own haywire factor too, that Jimmy has really helped them tamp down with the crazy turnovers and all of that. It should be a great series. I can't wait. Speaking of, I can't wait. Oklahoma City, Denver. This is the basketball fans' second round series. This is so much fun. Oklahoma City hasn't played in what feels like a month, and talk about a battle of a fresh team versus a team that just went through a slugfest. This is one. We got the MVP frontrunners going against each other. We have the Russell Westbrook vengeance tour, although there's no vengeance factor in this one, really, like there was against Clippers. By the way, Russ, look, I'm not a Russ guy. I've been hard on Russ. Sensational in that series. Sensational. And you want to say, oh, he's giving him his flowers now. Yeah, you know why? Because he averaged 14 points a game and made 42% of his threes and was a force of nature on the boards. Last year, I believe he was 13 of 50 from the field in the playoffs and was completely on tilt against the Mavericks. So yeah, he was way better. He was sensational in this series. And the intentional technical foul for hanging on the rim when he teed himself up in almost perfect concert with the referee making the tee up sign was glorious. One of my favorite postseason moments of all time. And now he gets to go to Oklahoma City where he'll always be beloved. There's no tension, anything there. He is a hero in Oklahoma City. And the Thunder, Okay, here we go. You get the best player in the world. You get a team that won the championship 2 years ago. This is the round you lost in last year. You won a million zillion games. I can't wait for this series. It starts tonight, so we're going to be a little quick. And this, and we barely got to see it during the regular season when they matched up. And we really barely got to see it with Aaron Gordon on the floor because he got injured in the middle at the start of one of the games and then missed the next one. This is the Hartenstein-Holmgren series. This is why you got this guy in free agency, to emulate what Minnesota did against Jokic, which is put Hartenstein on Jokic and say, we're gonna shade toward you in the post. We're gonna send some help, but we're gonna try not to double you. And some of that help is gonna come from the 7-foot shot blocker who's on Aaron Gordon, or sometimes Christian Brown, or sometimes Russell Westbrook, or sometimes one of many people that are going to be left open for the Denver Nuggets. And he's going to be the one waiting for you at the rim. Now, they won't play that way the whole game. And the Holmgren only minutes are super interesting. And the Hartenstein only minutes are super interesting. I'm not sure there should be any big Jaylen Williams only minutes, although he's guarded Jokic some too. To me, that's the first thing I'm going to be watching is Oklahoma City, how they guard Jokic, how much they can shrink the floor. I mean, there is no better team. Giving the most voracious, fastest, longest, meanest defense in the NBA, a team that is short on shooting, to the point that if they take out one of Murray, Michael Porter Jr., or Jokic, it feels like their shooting collapses into a sinkhole. They can't even take out two of them at once now. They've rendered that impossible. You give that defense a team that's got some non-shooters that they can help off of and recover back to. It feels like the toughest postseason test of Nikola Jokic's career. One where he's going to have to make do in tight spaces, where he's going to have to find cutters in traffic, and those cutters are going to have to finish in traffic. I just can't wait to see this defense, and particularly the two-headed big man monster, against the best player in the world.
You said the exact thing that I had in my notes here, right under my capitalized Thunder -Nuggets first bullet point. This is why you go get Isaiah Hartenstein. It's interesting too, right? That the Celtics are the defending champs, but the last Western Conference team to win the championship, of course, was the year before, was Denver. And so in a lot of ways, like, I just love this, thematically, this is the way that the NBA is supposed to go, right? You're the scrappy young Thunder team that, busts through 68-win season. Everybody's talking about you as a finals favorite. Shea's the, MVP favorite, or Shea versus Jokic for MVP. All the other wonderful things being said and lobbed your way. But you got to go through the reigning power. And in the West, that is Denver. As far as I'm concerned.
Wait, isn't it Dallas still? Is Dallas still the reigning power as defending Western Conference champions? How are they doing? Who are they playing in the next round?
I don't remember a Dallas team doing anything recently. But this is why you go get Hartenstein, and this is I love the fact that this is who you have to go through. Like, this is the way it needed to be. I was also just checking this because the Nuggets, to your point, Russ was great, and I too have been, critical of him for much of his career for various things. I loved that moment. I loved the hanging on the rim. It was the most intentional, obvious, just F you to everybody, including the Clippers, who traded him away,
benched him, traded him away.
And I love anybody, and I'll say the same for Harden, somebody else who I've sometimes been critical of. We both have. I love when a guy gets to that back stretch of their career and can you can't rewrite your history, but you can tack on a new chapter that puts you in a different light. You contribute in a different way. You settle into whether it's a mentor role or whether it's the 6-man role, whatever. And it's what you do with it. That's our last memory of you, right? It's the opposite of Dwight Howard, who blew us all away the first half of his career, and the second half of his career just made us all wonder why we ever, praised him in the first place. I love what Russ has done for Denver. We'll see what more he has in the next round. But the Nuggets, that rotation, first round, they played 6 players 25 plus minutes, and some of them very, very far beyond 25. Plus Peyton Watson at 13 minutes a game. That's it. That was the Nuggets rotation. The Thunder had 7 guys playing 20 or more minutes in the first round on average, and 2 others in double digits: Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, the other Wiggins. The Thunder, their depth, depth does not necessarily matter as much in the playoffs, we know, but they can throw waves of very functional, very good players at you. And if Shea or J-Dub or anybody else needs a breather, they've got guys they can go to and not worry about falling off a cliff. And the Nuggets do not. And I know we talk about shortening rotations in the playoffs, and you really only need 7 or 8 guys. The Nuggets barely have the 7 or 8 guys, and the Thunder have 12.
Imagine being Jamal Murray. Lou Dort's going to start on him. Going to get a little case on Wallace. That's no fun.
Then Caruso.
Then Caruso comes in. Caruso's going to guard everybody. Caruso is going to guard Aaron Gordon. He's guarded Jokic before, like on purpose in mixed up schemes, just to switch it up. I don't know how much, if ever, we'll see that. And he's going to guard Murray. And the Memphis series, if you can remember it, it's ancient history. It's clear that they've saved Caruso for the play. I mean, it was clear during the regular season they were load managing Caruso for the playoffs. And he has emerged as, if there's a 6 starter / closer in place of one of the big guys, it's going to be him. And he was awesome against Memphis. The matchups are going to be Dort on Murray. SGA will guard Michael Porter Jr. J-Dub will guard Christian Brown. And then the big guys on the big guys. That's the starting matchups. That's tough. And by the way, Jamal Murray, a lot of the Denver angst has been justifiably about the bench, which is thin. A lot of it also was they've got 2 guys making max or max-ish money who are not producing at max or max-ish levels. And like every team structure falls away if max guys don't perform at max levels. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. gutting out a shoulder injury. Jamal Murray in the playoffs, 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 48% shooting, 40% on threes. That's on par shooting efficiency-wise with his championship run. Now, the points per game are down by 3 because his usage is down, but he's playing awesome again. And if he's playing awesome, Denver has a chance against anybody because they have the best guy. And so Denver has a chance in this series if Jamal Murray keeps playing like that. I just can't wait to see how Denver's offense responds to this challenge. I think something to watch is how closely Hartenstein and Jokic's minutes are matched. Like Jokic plays almost the whole game. Hartenstein won't. The other minutes are going to be really interesting because when Holmgren guards Jokic, they're just going to go right to the post every single time. And they should. And because Holmgren is big and long as he is, he'll get a block every now and then. He cannot sustain against Jokic in the post. And then you say, okay, we'll just help. And like, okay, Christian Brown beat us with threes. Aaron Gordon, you shot 45% from the 3. We're still going to dare you. It's still hard for Chet Holmgren, and it's still hard for the Thunder. To wit, I was watching film of Jokic's post-ups against the Thunder this year, and I was like, man, this is a lot of post-ups. And I looked it up. For the season, he averaged 11 post-ups per 100 possessions. Against the Thunder, that went up to 15.5. So he posted up a lot, and he posted up Holmgren a lot, and maybe you have to have big Jalen Williams in there when Hartenstein is out. And if you do, I think that's a win for the Nuggets. Thunder offense, let's switch sides of the floor. The Nuggets have matched up with Christian Brown on Shea. Good luck. That's so fun. Jokic on Hartenstein. Aaron Gordon on Jalen Williams. Michael Porter Jr. on Chet Holmgren. That's a pivot point in this series. Michael Porter Jr. on Chet Holmgren. Put him in pick and roll, hunt him down. I didn't think the Clippers hunted Michael Porter Jr. enough, particularly since he's playing with one shoulder. I think the Thunder will. How much can Holmgren punish him as a shooter? How much punish him as a shooter, driver, whatever? And does Holmgren make enough shots that on pick and pops they start sending a third guy rotating at him? Because if that happens, the series really begins to lean, or at least that little battle really begins to lean toward Oklahoma City. I think this is a really fascinating matchup. And the defensive matchups, by the way, obviously get a lot friendlier for the Nuggets when Russ comes in for Michael Porter Jr. You can slide everybody over, or Peyton Watson comes in and you can slide everybody over. I just think the shooting reaches a point where it's asking so much of Jokic to create with just a swarm of dudes around him. Couple other notes. The free throw differential needs to be huge for Denver. Oklahoma City fouls a ton, and they're okay with that because they get all the benefits of it. They're number 1 in turnovers force, etc. And they also don't get to the line at offense. Denver is the opposite. They don't foul and they get to the line a lot. I'm talking like plus 8 to 10 attempts per game for Denver if they want to win this series. And obviously, Denver needs to protect the ball. They're average at that. Oklahoma City is incredible at it. I can't wait for this tonight. Do you want to? You have any thoughts, and then we can do our predictions?
Nothing else major. Just there's a lot of I don't know what the Nuggets get from game to game. From are we going to see Jamal? We've started to see playoff Jamal Murray again. Or is he back to stay? How much are they getting from him? Because without that, I just don't think they have a shot. And then Russ giveth and Russ taketh away, and you just never know. Especially when they're obviously going to be playing off of him because everybody does. He's going to make those shots or not. What do the Nuggets get from Watson, Pickett, Strother, who just random dudes off the bench? I'm curious about I'm curious about everything that is not Nikola Jokic, essentially, on the Nuggets side of this.
One last thing I forgot to. By the way, Pickett, Strother, obviously you got essentially nothing in the last round. Who will give them something out of this general group? Watson gave them stuff, and they needed every bit of it. Interesting thing about the Thunder against Jokic and the Murray-Jokic pick and roll. They have been loath to switch, much less so than almost any team of film I've watched against the Nuggets. We saw the Clippers would do that like late switch when Jokic would pop out. They were scared enough of his three-pointer to switch on him, and then he'd go into the post. They'd do it late, but they would do it. The Thunder almost never do that. They trust Hartenstein and Holmgren to like contain and get back to Jokic, and they are fine with Jokic shooting semi-open, semi-contested, however you want to characterize them, threes. Which means another pivot point in this series, another must lean Denver's way for them to win the series, is Jokic is going to have to shoot well from three, and he's going to have to get a lot of momentum on pump, drive, and then create in tight spaces on that exact play. If they're not going to switch and they're not going to send a third guy rotating to him, they're going to make him create like that, and he can do it. I am picking Thunder in 6.
Wow, in 6. Out of an abundance
I have too much respect for Denver.
Yeah.
They don't lose in short series when Jokic is healthy and the team around him. He's always healthy. When Murray and Porter have been healthy, they do not lose in short series. So I have too much respect for Jokic. I wanted to go 5, and I'm like, you know what? 6. I'll go 6 again.
I'm going 7. Thunder and 7. It is maybe too much, and maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment with the way the Nuggets closed out the Clips. It's an abundance of respect for Jokic and for the Nuggets and who they are, what they've done. And maybe I have just like a little bit, I don't want to say I have doubts about the Thunder. I picked them to make the finals. I picked them to win the championship, in fact, all the way back in October. But they still are a team that's had like a couple of playoff series under their belt, and none of them against this team and this superstar, this all-timer. So Thunder should win the series, yes. I'm saying 7 out of respect for Denver and Jokic.
Knicks Celtics begins earlier tonight, so it'll be a little bit quicker. Celtics getting healthier, it sounds like, on the Drew Holiday front. The Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum fronts, wrist and knee, respectively. The other way around, actually. And the Knicks just gutted out a tough one against the Pistons, highlighted by a crazy Jalen Brunson crossover into a 3 to put them ahead and cap a big rally.
Incredible.
Everybody just incredible Jalen Brunson stuff. This has obviously been a nightmare matchup for the Knicks. The Celtics won all 4 games. They scored 130 points per 100 possessions against the Knicks defense, completely gashed the Knicks. And they set the blueprint right away. I mean, they didn't set it. Other people have done it for defending the Knicks, which is they're going to put a wing on Karl Anthony Towns. It'll usually be one of the Jays. And they're going to put Kristaps Porzingis on Josh Hart and have him be a roamer. And as we saw with the Pistons, the Knicks have just sort of, sometimes they hit it, sometimes they don't, sometimes they find counters, sometimes they don't. It just sort of takes them out of the rhythm and flow that they just want to be in. Drew Holiday has generally guarded Jalen Brunson. That's no fun when Drew Holiday is guarding you. They obviously have a plethora, to use your word, of guys who can switch on to anybody on the Knicks. And one sort of indication of how committed the Celtics are to putting a wing on Towns and taking away his pick and pop game. When they go too big against the Knicks, when they put, like, let's say Horford Cornette, Horford Porzingis, and the Knicks just have Towns, they will sometimes put neither big on Towns, even in that situation. They'll put one on Hart and one on Bridges or Anunoby and just say, hey, deal with this. How about these mind games? We're still not putting a wing on you. And one of the counters for this scheme is to use Josh Hart as a screener. It's like, you're going to put your centers on Josh Hart. We're going to have to use Josh Hart as a screener. Cat can space. That makes a lot of sense. Josh Hart set an enormous amount of screens against the Celtics in the 4 games this season. According to Second Spectrum, 2 of his top 4 ball screen frequency games were against the Celtics, 4 of his top 19. That feels like the Celtics directing the Knicks offense in places where it doesn't necessarily want to go, but can still work. And, on the other end, the Celtics offense is awesome. And we could talk about how the Knicks might defend it. I think the Knicks are tough, maybe a hair underrated. They look a little bit scattered right now, and this is not a good team to be scattered against.
No. I went to all the home games that the Knicks played against the Pistons in the first round. And look, some of this is just, credit to Detroit, but some of this is I think, just some concerns about the Knicks too. Like, the Pistons could have absolutely won that series, and with a little more polish, might have. And aside from game one,
with Josh Hart getting called for the foul that he committed against Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah. They get blown off the court in the fourth quarter of game one with that 21-0 run. Like, okay, that was legit, and that was just you getting your butts handed to you. But every other game was either a Pistons win or a very close loss. And I think the other 3 losses were decided by a total of 6 points. The Pistons gave them everything they could handle, and the Pistons are not the Celtics. I think the Knicks, there are times they feel very over-dependent on Jalen Brunson. And there's a lot of ISO and a lot of our buddy Dan Devine had a great breakdown last week prior to Game 6 about how slow their pace is and how often they're getting down to like the last ticks of the shot clock. Seth Partnow weighed in on that too on Blue Sky. They were discussing this, that I don't know, is that a Tibbs thing? Is that a Brunson thing? Is that a Tibbs and Brunson thing together? I don't know who to pin that on exactly, but the Knicks end up with, I think, a lot of harder shots and a lot of Brunson late shot clock attempts. And there's not a lot of dynamism to that offense. When they got Mikal Bridges last summer and they gave up a shit ton to get him, I thought, the Bridges that we saw in Phoenix could, run the offense at times. Was, he was the third wheel, but he was a very effective third wheel and with the ball in his hands. And they came to Brooklyn, and, I never thought he was a true number 1. But that's what they had to use him as for that first couple of months when they got him. And he did so very respectably. Not so much the second season with him. I just think that, like, Bridges as another conduit for the offense, as somebody who could run the second unit perhaps, and also just take some of the pressure off Jalen Brunson when they're out there together, I thought would have been the best use of him. And they don't play through him as much as I thought they would. And they don't, and Cat disappears at times, partially because the offense goes away from him, partially because Cat is Cat, and he's a very frustrating postseason player throughout his career. And then there's this. I just think that given all as reliant as they are on Jalen Brunson, going up against a team that can throw Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford on switches, whatever. Like, the Celtics are always going to have a body or bodies in front of Jalen Brunson. This is as difficult a task as he's going to have to navigate. And they're all bigger than him. Almost all of them are bigger than him as well. This is a very, very bad matchup for the Knicks, as seen in the regular season when, as you note, they got swept.
Well, look, we can talk all about how Boston matches up defensively and this and that. If they score 130 points per 100 possessions, it doesn't matter. And so the Knicks defense has to be a lot better than they were against Boston in the regular season. We know what Boston's going to do. We know what they're going to do. They're going to hunt Brunson relentlessly. If there's one thing Boston is never guilty of, it's letting an opposing star who's maybe a little bit of a weak spot on defense off the hook. They're going to go at him, and they're going to go at Cat. And it's cool you have these 3 interchangeable huge wings in between them. They're all really good. We're not going to go at them. We're going to go at the weak spots. They're going to run Cat ragged. They're going to try to. Cat's going to start guarding Porzingis. And let's take it creative. Not really a word you'd associate with a Tom Thibodeau defense, but there's a world in which they can move Cat around a little bit. It's tempting to say, could he go guard Drew Holiday? The problem with that is Jalen Brunson has to guard someone, and they don't want it to be Derek White. They definitely don't want it to be one of the Jays. It's kind of got to be Drew Holiday too, and so that limits your flexibility. So they're going to run Cat in a bunch of Porzingis pick and pops. They're going to run him through screens on the way to the pick and pop, so he's even further behind the play. They know that they can fake him the wrong way by kind of faking toward a screen or flipping the screen. He's prone to guessing wrong. And look, Porzingis hasn't shot the three well in the playoffs. If he starts hitting enough of them, then you got to send that third rotator flying at him, and then you're scrambling, and then you're in big, big trouble. It's been a tough matchup for the Knicks defensively. The Celtics know exactly where they want to go at all times. I will say the one benefit of Cat guarding Porzingis is, and this goes to your point about Brunson, and stubbornness and slowness. Both of these teams play slow. I think the Knicks have a greater urgency to play a little bit faster in this series, both to maximize Hart as a passer and a distributor and just a one-man crazy fast break. But also, if Cat's guarding Porzingis, that means Porzingis is going to be stuck on Cat now and then after stops. They have to attack. Anytime the center is on Cat, abort the entire offensive plan, whatever it is, and go right into the Brunson Cat pick and roll or the Bridges Cat pick and roll, empty side on the left side, whatever. Use that against the Celtics because that is what you got Cat for. And when you are gifted that, as you often were against the Pistons for various reasons, you must use it. This is not the Pistons. You cannot fritter away these possessions by doing other useless stuff here and there and then asking Brunson to create with 5 on the shot clock. Use it when you have it. I don't know. I mean, what else do you want to say? Like, Boston, there's a lot of interesting little battles. I mean, Boston takes the most threes. The Knicks don't give up a lot of threes. The Knicks also don't take threes. And I think another fundamental problem that they're facing is just math. Boston's offense is so good. The Knicks are 27th in three-point rate. It's just going to be hard to beat Boston 4 times when they're going to have 2 games in 7 where they shoot 45% from 3 or whatever it is, and they just bury you. And you're going to have 1 game where you don't take enough threes and you're cold and you shoot 5 for 26 and you're just math out of the game. Assuming good health for the Celtics, I'm going to go Celtics in 5.
I have the same. The Knicks will get a game there at some point. I think their best hope is that, Brown is still dinged up or Holiday's still dinged up or both of them or whatever. I don't think there's a world where both teams at full strength, the Knicks have a chance to really extend this thing. I mean, this has been, we're both you're in the New York area. I'm in New York itself, and I have a lot of friends who are Knicks fans, and I check, do my pulse check with them occasionally. It's been a very angsty season for Knicks fans in general. Like this, seeing Hartenstein thrive elsewhere, and DiVincenzo for that matter. Ideally, I think they would have never let those 2 guys go. They couldn't do anything about it with Hartenstein, and then they needed DiVincenzo with Randall to get Cat, and they got better offensively, slipped a little defensively. They don't quite have the same spirit or the same grit that was so much fun about last year's Knicks team in the playoffs. And Knicks fans have felt
when they ran out of players.
At the end of
the playoffs.
But that was part of the charm of that team, is like guys kept going down and they just kept fighting their asses off.
Charm loses. That's cool. Charm's cute. Yeah. Charm's cute until you're playing 4. You have 4 guys left and you lose.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, we both have Celtics in 5. This is going to be a chalk prediction round, I think, for everybody. Quick reaction to Indiana-Cleveland game 1. The Pacers storm into the series. Good at basketball, the Indiana Pacers. Win game 1 on the road. Shoot the lights out from 3. Darius Garland still out. I picked Cavs in 5. That's not going great. That prediction's not off to a flying start. I thought Garland would be ready for game 1. I was wrong. He obviously changes the entire series in multiple ways. It's harder to hide Tyrese Halliburton defensively. Now the non-Donovan Mitchell minutes have Darius Garland. Now Cavs are kind of searching for an offensive identity in those minutes. If there is one thing that you want to take and digest and talk about from game 1, what is it? I mean, I have mine. I can go first, but what did you notice? What did you find interesting?
The theme of the Cavs season has been largely, one of the themes, a prominent one was, hey, look at how great It's been to see Donovan Mitchell giving up more control of the offense and empowering Darius Garland, and Kenny Atkinson's got this team moving in a different way. The offense was just much more dynamic, and this is how they have this massive breakthrough and big leap in the win total, have the number 1 seed. So much of it about Donovan Mitchell being able to kind of recalibrate. And in this really important game without Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell takes 30 shots and makes 13. Barkley made the point on the broadcast right after, which I didn't, the numbers hadn't hit me until he said it, that Mitchell and Ty Jerome combined for 50
shots.
50 shots.
Ty Jerome's not playing around out there, Howard. Ty Jerome is out there to score, okay? He's out there to do his floater where he's like on the way down and leaning back and looks like it's going to have no chance and it goes in. Ty Jerome is out there to score. He's out there to flex. He's out there to shoot logo threes. He is not messing around. The Orlando Magic and their cap space are watching right now. Ty Jerome, baby.
I support Ty Jerome being Ty Jerome. Let Ty be Ty. That's fine. Maybe not to the tune of 20 attempts.
No, 20 is not enough. 20. If Darius Garland's out, I got to get minimum 25 shots from Ty Jerome.
I looked this up. So as a Cavalier, Donovan Mitchell has 9 games, counting yesterday's, where he took 30 or more field goal attempts. 9 games. You care to guess the Cavaliers?
9 times. Okay, you're baiting me. 4 and 5.
3 and 6.
Okay, I was close.
And the 2 of those wins were in overtime. One of those was Donovan Mitchell's 71-point game in January of 23 against Chicago. You got to believe that if Darius Garland is healthy-ish and functioning and playing it on the court, that the offense balances out a little bit and we don't get this Donovan Mitchell overload, which can sink the Cavs just as it sometimes sank the Jazz. And I don't want to boil this down to simply like, well, with Garland they're great, and without Garland they're toast. But this was an ensemble built around 4 stars or potential stars, and a really, really important one is missing right now. I don't know if you may have more intel than I do. I don't know what the odds of seeing him back for game 2 and then what the rest of the series looks like, but it seems like a lot hinges on that now.
Speaking of you said Jazz, just said the word Jazz. We should mention Will Hardy got a contract extension this morning. And you know what? Good on the Jazz. This is how you treat a young coach, a rising young coach, who pretty much everyone in the league agrees is at least a good coach, potentially a great one. And you put him through the ringer, no pun intended, of crap teams and bogus injuries to the point that the league finally finds you, and rebuild and half tank and then full tank and half tank. Oh, we're going to pull the rug out from under your team halfway through again. And this year, we're just not even going to have a rug. The rug is gone. You're going to be crap from the beginning, and we're going to handcuff you in every possible way. This is what you do. You give them years, you give them security, and you give them money. Will Hardy, you earned that money. You're a good coach. Congratulations. Cavs, Pacers. I don't know what the hell I was going to say. First of all, I ain't worried. I'm worried about my Cavs in 5 prediction, but I ain't worried about the Cavs yet. The one thing I'm going to watch is this, and we saw this with the Bucks too, against the Pacers. The Cavs switched a lot yesterday on defense. They've really, to Kenny Atkinson's credit, been a pretty diverse defensive team this year. They've done more switching than you would expect given their personnel. They've experimented with zones. They've done a lot of stuff. It's not like they're doing something that's completely out of pocket for them, and so thus you're going to struggle. It's something you have no practice at. They switched on 36 ball screens. That's tied for the 3rd most in any game this year. Indiana scored 1.3 points per possession and about 1.2 points per possession directly out of those plays. That's a lot. It's too much. The reason they are switching, and the reason the Bucks switched, despite the Bucks not having personnel that could switch and stay in front of Tyrese Halliburton, is that these teams, these defenses have so much respect for Halliburton and such fear of Indiana's offense, putting them in a blender where it's just catch and shoot 3, catch and shoot 3, catch and shoot 3, that they are willing to switch and live with bad matchups, live with Pascal Siakam posting up Sam Merrill or Donovan Mitchell, live with Jared Allen, who started the game on Pascal Siakam and defended him for the most part, which I thought was interesting. Live with Jared Allen on Tyrese Halliburton. And you want to blow by him and get a floater? Fine. Pascal Siakam, you take fadeaway jumpers in the post. Miles Turner, you take fadeaway jumpers in the post. Guess what? Those are 2s. They're not 3s. And some of those 2s are going to be easy. They're going to be wide open layups. They're going to be dunks, whatever. They're not threes. And I think both the Bucks and now the Cavs are over worrying about the Pacers offense and switching too much. And I expect the Cavs to keep switching. I think they'll switch a little bit less. And you saw in game one, like, you can't switch and still give up catch and shoot threes. And that happened too many times in game one. A lot of that is fixable. So what you'll see is they'll switch and a guard will be on Siakam or Turner in the post. And someone will come from the wing, a bigger defender, and rescue those guys. They call it a scram switch and say, you get out, go on the perimeter, I'll take your guy. And they were a train wreck on those scram switches in game one. They totally were confused. They weren't communicating well. And so there'd be a mismatch in the post. Nesmith hit a back-breaking three with like 4.5 minutes to go in the game. When Hunter tried to scram Donovan Mitchell out of the post on Miles Turner, I think, and Donovan Mitchell was tangled up and could not get out and go guard Nesmith, and Nesmith was just wide open and shot a three and made it. That happened a bunch of times. Eventually, Tyrese Halliburton, if you let him dance with Jared Allen over and over again, he's going to have a game where he makes 5 step-back threes. And when he doesn't make 5 step-back threes, he's going to draw so much defense that it's going to be a dunk. Pascal Siakam got an and one in the post on Donovan Mitchell. That's a 3-point play. Your whole switching scheme is designed to not give up threes. You're giving up threes anyway. I just think teams like, can I see Miles Turner make some semi-contested pick-and-pop threes before I start contorting my entire defense to stop that shot from happening? Siakam made a pick and pop three over, I believe, a Mobley closeout early in the game. It was a good closeout. It was a contested three. He made it. Cool. Make it again 4 more times. You can switch. They switched 36 ball screens. I'd like, can that number be 25? If that number goes to 25, because I do think switching and holding them to twos has some value. Can it go to 25? So you still switch a lot. And you clean up the scrams, and you clean up, like, I thought they overhelped and down low a few times and had open threes. Clean that up. I think there's a better formula there, and maybe they can switch just as much and clean up the scrams and the other mistakes, and it works just as well. I would just dial it back a little. Like, make Miles Turner make some post-up baskets. Now, to his credit, he's gotten much better at that, particularly against small players. That's what I'm watching in particular. In addition, rather, to Garland's health. I'm not worried about the Cavs yet. You know what I am worried about? Their shirts. The diff is what you're going with on the shirts. The diff is so stupid. For those who don't know, the diff is something they put on their scoreboard. It stands for the difference, and it's literally the difference in the game. So if the score is 29-25, it'll say Cleveland 29, Indiana 25. The diff +4. Like, thanks. Really needed the diff column. It was stupid enough on the scoreboard. Now it's your shirt. The diff versus yes, sirs is the greatest possible gap in shirt cleverness in the NBA playoffs ever. And just like the Celtics deserve to start games down 5-0 when they wear their stupid black jerseys that nobody likes, the Cavs deserve to start yesterday's game down 5-0 for the stupid diff shirt, and the basketball gods punished them with a loss. Light those shirts on fire. We're something else for game 2.
The diff is on their broadcasts too, by the way.
That's what I said. That's what I mean. It's on TV. It's on. Like, thanks. I'm watching the game. I can do 29 minus 25. I don't need the diff to do it for me.
It used to be just on their scoreboard, I believe. Like, you were in the arena.
The
you saw
Humongatron? That's what they call the scoreboard. The Poor John Michael on Play-By-Play has to be like, oh, they just showed the replay on the Humongatron because these corporate mandates that he call it the Humongatron and not the Jumbotron. Oh, my God.
The yes, sirs is killing me a little bit, though, Zach. Like, just like the soft C has to take on the S sound in this the sirs with pace. I guess it's pace sirs, but like, yes, sir. You're taking it a little too far. It doesn't look good on a shirt to have the C there, where the first thing you think is like.
I disagree. Yeah. And Howard, I think respectfully, I'm more fashionable than you. I think I have a good eye for fashion. All right. Howard Beck.
There's a contest no one needs.
Nobody needs that. We covered a lot of ground. Thank you for soldiering on the YouTube live. I don't know how that went. I haven't looked in the chat. Maybe everyone's making fun of us. I have no idea. I can't multitask. I'm too old to multitask. Sorry, chat people. But it was fun. And we will do this every other Monday on the Zach Lowe Show. And so that means 2 Mondays from now. Be ready. Be ready, Howard Beck. And thank you for your time. We now have podcast listeners will get to listen to Zack Cherry from Severance talk about my favorite show in his NBA fandom. Howard Beck, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. This is a special treat. Anytime somebody on a show or in a movie that I love also outs themselves as an NBA fan, I'm like a shark. I jump on it. I beg them. I cajole them. I ask them to come on the podcast. We have Zack Cherry, who plays Dylan G on Severance. And I am not cool, and I am not hip, and I am always way behind on anything that is cool and hip, except for this show. I was on the road in Los Angeles, up late, insomnia, nothing to do in my hotel room. It's like, this concept sounds cool. Let me watch the first episode. I've been in from the beginning. It's been awesome the whole way through. And Zack Cherry as Dylan has been one of the shining stars of the show. It is a joy to see you and meet you. Nice to meet you, by the way. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I can confirm you were an early adopter because I remember you reached out like really early during season 1 and said you were watching, which was very cool, very exciting for me.
Needless to say, anyone who has not watched Severance and would like to watch Severance, it's 2025. Spoilers may occur in the next 25 minutes of conversation. You have been forewarned. You live in Bushwick in Brooklyn with your wife. I suspect that in the blink, what feels like a blink of an eye for you, life went from no one ever recognizes me to I cannot leave my apartment without being recognized anymore and walk my dog in Bushwick and go to Prospect Park. Like, how dramatic has it been?
Yeah, it's been somewhere in between both of those where like even before the show, people would recognize me from occasional things from Spider-Man. I get a lot. People tell me to do a flip, which is a thing I say in the Spider-Man movie. But yeah, it's been wild, especially this season. And we do have a little dog who's very, very anxious. So she has had to get used to meeting a lot of new people.
Has it been fun for you?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's crazy how much people have, like kind of connected to the show, and especially the second season. It's been like a real whirlwind.
How do you handle the lag time between shooting and airing with people in your life probably asking you lots and lots of questions that you cannot answer?
I either lie to them and say I don't know the answer, or I maybe genuinely don't know the answer. But yeah, just take it one day at a time, get busy with other stuff. It's like, it's not... our show definitely did take a really long time. There were reasons for that. With this season, we were interrupted by the strikes, and that like put a big pause on it. But it's not that unusual now to kind of... shows used to come out every year, and now they don't. It's kind of just like how things work these days.
But this is a particularly sort of mystery box show. And I honestly, I have not had a mystery box show in my life since the X-Files. That's how I miss Lost completely. And I know there's been a lot of parallels. I forgot how exciting it is to be like, what the fuck is going on here? And like, it's sensation. Fun. It's a sensation I really love. My wife, who does not watch the show because it's just too dark and suspenseful for her, she does not like the sensation of not knowing what's going on. And I'm like, that's the point. And that's the thrill of it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's been cool watching it like build. When the show first came out, it kind of came out in a vacuum and we didn't really know like what people would think of it. And it's kind of a weird show that's hard to describe. And it has been really fun watching, the various online communities spring up that are kind of dedicated to unpacking everything that's going on in the show. And regularly they will catch things that I had not noticed, even though I'm part of it.
Now, we are going to talk about the NBA shortly, but I have to ask one more Severance question before we go that way, and then I'm going to annoy you with other Severance questions.
I'm game.
How does the script rollout happen? Like, do you get them episode by episode? Like, I don't know how the shooting schedule works. Do you get the whole season's worth of scripts at once? Like, how much do you know in advance? I mean, I've read that you only like to read your lines, and so you don't know like what else is going on in the show. I don't know how true that is, but I'm just like, how fast does this go script by script by script?
So I do read the whole script. That's from the Severance podcast. I do a bit on where they have me like make predictions, but because I've read the scripts, obviously I can't make real predictions. So we kind of fudge it a little bit and pretend I don't really know what's going on. But it worked a little different in season 1 and season 2. Season 1, I think we had all the scripts when we started, so we we knew the whole season. Season 2, we were kind of like walked through the arc of the season for our characters. And then we would get the scripts as they finished. We were kind of like shooting as we went for season 2. And we shoot it a little different. Like we shoot it almost more like a movie where we block shoot, where we'll kind of shoot a bunch of scenes in each location across multiple episodes. So we don't quite shoot it in order just because it is such a big, complicated show. I think that's just like the easiest way to do it.
Okay. We're going to pivot to the NBA before I get annoying. Explain to people, you followed me on what is now X. I will always call it Twitter. And I was like, ooh, I got a little like verified follower. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, look at this. It's the guy on my favorite show. But you have a very modern approach to NBA fandom, apparently. Please explain.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have been, reading and listening to you for a long time, and there's my dog.
Yeah.
Oh no, she's going nuts.
I can't hear it. Doesn't matter.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. So, I don't have like necessarily a team that's my team. Although I will say now that I've been in New York for 10, 12 years, I have become more and more of a Knicks and Nets fan, because it's like, especially the Knicks, it's really fun being in New York when the Knicks are good and when the Knicks are winning and people are excited and like everyone's talking about, did you catch the game last night? That is a lot of fun. But yeah, I've kind of always just watched the league as a whole. I have players that I love. LeBron's always been one of my guys who I kind of follow and love. I grew up in New Jersey, and we had this like high school basketball tournament in my hometown in Trenton. And LeBron played in it a couple of years in a row. So I got to see him in high school. So I've kind of always, been rooting for him. But yeah, I don't have like a team that's my diehard NBA team.
Okay. Who are your other guys? Like, who are the guys that you have a soft spot for? Stars, non-stars? Like who just strikes your fancy?
I am a huge Brunson fan right now. I love Ant. I love Giannis. I mean, it's basically just all the best players. I'm like a little kid who's just like, that guy's good.
LaMelo Ball. I mean, if you like LaMelo Ball, then you're really like a little kid. All the little kids love LaMelo Ball.
I do like LaMelo, but I'll be honest, I haven't watched as many LaMelo games as I could have.
I can imagine a regular person with like a regular job that's not in the NBA is like, I'm not deep diving on the LaMelo Ball, Musa Diabate pick and roll combination.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Is Stiller going to hook you up at one of these Knicks games? I mean, like, when is this going to happen? Maybe you've been courtside and I missed it.
Yeah, I've been to a couple with him. During season 1, we went to a playoff game together, and that was crazy.
Which game?
It was Knicks Heat, I think, and it was maybe might have been game 1, game 2. I do remember the Knicks lost, and I remember thinking, well, I might not be invited back because I'm now bad vibes for that. But then we also went to a game early this season, and I think it was Knicks Wolves, which was very exciting, but I think Cat wasn't playing maybe. So it was, a little bit of the, excitement was missing, but it was awesome. It's awesome to go. Sitting courtside is crazy. It's like, it honestly feels like there's so much happening that it's kind of hard to process for me still. But yeah, it was very cool going with him to a couple games.
I'm guessing a few players while sitting courtside have come and talked to Ben and also to you. Have any like noted you specifically from like, oh man, I love Dylan on Severance? What's the best player interaction on the courtside games?
Yeah. So I also have been for some context, my wife and I are now massive New York Liberty fans.
There you go.
And so we've gotten to know some of the people there. So we got to go to a couple Nets games this year and sit courtside. And during one of those games, RJ Barrett came over and he was like, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he was sort of like, oh no, I'm severed. And I think he was kind of doing his impression of the elevator transition, like his eyes, going from innie to outie. So that was pretty cool. And Garrett Temple said hi at that point too. So yeah, that has been wild. It's been very, very, very cool. And I've heard that Cat is a big fan, but I haven't got to meet him yet.
Oh, well, that's going to happen. Stiller is like, he's intense during these games.
He is so locked in. Like, I actually remember during season 1, we were still shooting during the playoffs, and we were getting towards the end of the season. So it was like some intense scenes, and he would have his phone right next to his director's monitor, and he would have the camera feed up on the monitor, and he would have the Knicks game up on his phone and kind of be going back and forth because he's like, he's so plugged into what's happening with the Knicks.
You saw it. He and Chalamet were both in Detroit for at least one of the pits. I was like, God damn, they're really all in on this.
Yeah, he's like a super fan. And that has made me more of a Knicks fan because it's like, partially I'm just like, I just want them to win so he has a good day.
It's like my daughter and her swim coach. Anyway, you've mentioned also that you like to, when you're in a new city and there's an NBA game, you like to sort of experiment, like, let's check out this arena. Has there been any arena that you're like, man, I like the feel of this place, or any game that ended up just randomly like this Hornets game was super fun?
Yeah, I was in Toronto for work for like a month at one point and went to a couple Raptors games, and I loved the vibe there. This year, some friends and I, we went to Vegas to watch the tournament semis. Oh, nice. Which was fun. It was like exciting to be there. I will say though, it was missing. What I love about being in the other arenas is like the home crowd and like experiencing that. And so for the semis, because it was like a neutral site, it was missing that kind of like intensity that you can get in certain places. But yeah, I think the Raptors was like my favorite kind of road experience that I've had.
That's fun. Toronto people are going to you're going to be aggregated and you're going to be like an honorary Canadian. Now they're so insane.
I will say, I don't have like a team, but Vince Carter, when he was on the Raptors, was one of my guys growing up. So like I used to have Raptors shirts and stuff. Like they were one of my kind of like honorary teams. I always have a soft spot for the Raptors.
Well, they brought back the purple dinosaurs this year on their throwback jerseys.
Yeah, I love it.
They looked awesome. Okay, it's time for me to nerd out. Unless you have other NBA commentary you want to get. Do you have any hot takes, any MVP commentary? Like, this is the place to get it out. Hottest Zack Cherry NBA takes. Let's go.
Well, it's not exactly a hot take, but I was talking to my friends about this, who I have to say, my friends, this is the most excited for anything I've done they've ever been.
Yes!
Like all my basketball watching friends, my high school buddies are like freaking out. I told them I was coming on the show and they can't believe it. So this is major credit for me.
Okay, so the reverse is also true. People who are like, Zach Dylan, he's like the most funny part of Severance. Oh my God. So yes, that's awesome to hear. Thank
Perfect synergy for us. And I was taught, first of all, we were trying to figure out, I claim this is my idea. They don't believe it was my idea. They think that I must have heard this somewhere, but I have a pitch that I think would be fun, which is, I think, and obviously this will never happen, but it's, you're on the Ringer, you're in the world of sports pitches that aren't based in reality. I would love if when NBA teams defeat a team in the playoffs, they got to select one player to add to their roster and just collect players as the playoffs go on. I think that would be incredible.
This is insane because last week, on the very last episode I did, I said that the Cavs beat the Heat so badly in their sweep, like they beat them by 51 games, that they should actually get to pick a member of the Heat to join their team. Like if you beat a team that badly,
yes,
maybe. And I said maybe the Heat can protect like Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, like it's an expansion draft. This is incredible. I like it
because I think it should only be for that run of the playoffs. You don't get to keep them for the next season, but it would be so fun to like. I was just thinking. I was watching Warriors Rockets last night, and I was like, if the Warriors could add Amen Thompson to like get in there with Draymond and just wreak havoc, it would be incredible. So I'm putting that theory out there. It's possible I heard it somewhere. My friends don't believe that I made it up. I don't remember hearing it somewhere else. So I'm sure your listeners will have heard, if it's out there somewhere, they will know where it comes from. I
have not heard it. So I think you get the credit is what I'm going to say.
I'll try and popularize it, even if I didn't come up with it. So let's get some momentum going. Get Adam Silver on the phone. If you have his number, we can maybe get me in a meeting with him, and I'll kind of pitch this.
When he comes on my podcast, and this will happen, I'm going to ask this question and just see what he says, because now I have to. Okay, Severance. I love Severance. I love everything about Severance. I actually rewatched the entire first season, which I've never done before in preparation for season 2. I've never done that for any show. The long gap had something to do with it.
Definitely.
And it really helped. I had forgotten, like, the whole PD subplot. I had kind of forgotten. Okay, so I watched and listened to a bunch of your interviews. You have said that if you could take one prop from the set, it would be the John Turturro watermelon head, which is one of the spookiest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have that prop. What do you have from the set? Have you actually taken anything from the set?
You know, I think I maybe have, I think I have one of the caricature portraits somewhere that are sitting on my cubicle, like it's like me surfing and stuff. I think I have one of those somewhere, but I don't have a ton of stuff. We have a couple of like little swag things they've given us. They gave us all, after season 1, they gave us all crystal heads like Adam has on his desk of ourselves. So I have that somewhere, which is pretty cool. But I have not, I haven't taken home much of the set.
By the way, Adam, you mentioned Adam Scott. If you're listening, it's now famously known that Ben Stiller had to really fight for Adam Scott to get that role. Just Adam Scott, if you ever hear this, A+ perform. I mean, it's A+ for all of you guys.
Incredible.
The acting is incredible, but like, good for Ben Stiller for fighting for it, and Adam Scott has paid it off in spades. Okay. By the way, Tremel Tillman, who plays Milchick in that interview with you, said he would take the Keir Egan statue from the last episode, which is a great one. And I did not know until listening to that interview that Ben Stiller was operating that statue.
That's right.
But is it whose voice is it? Do we know?
So on the day, I believe it was the actor whose face Keir is modeled off. I believe he was there doing the voice, and Ben just had a little, it was like a remote control basically that he could kind of make it move around. But I wasn't there that day, so I don't know. I didn't see it. That statue scene kicks off what I would describe and have described to my friends as the most insane 25 minutes of television I've ever seen. And somehow all of it works. The whole thing you're watching and you're like, there's a marching band and like, what in the world is even happening here? And yet it works spectacularly. Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple, how did you keep a straight face questions? How did you keep a straight face and particularly an angry face, a building tension face when Milchick is bobbing and weaving and dancing right behind your chair during the famous music dance experience from season 1? And Milchick's dancing, Tremel Tillman's dancing, obviously legendary at this point. And you just got to sit there and look angry as his face is like behind your shoulders and he's doing all like that. How'd you do that? I would be laughing the whole time. Yeah, well, honestly, it's funny because it was kind of, everyone else got to be like having fun and dancing, and I had to be like in my own little world. So I was kind of angry. I was like, everyone else is having fun. Everyone is like, that's like become this, kind of iconic scene from the show. Everyone gets to show off their little moves, and I just have to sit there stewing. So it kind of worked. I kind of was feeling a little left out. So I just used that.
Okay, Dylan G gets the waffle party where you go into the Egan house and you go in the Egan bed, and the Tempers, masked as goats and whatever else they are doing salacious dances in front of you. Again, what is that set actually like, and how in the hell do you not, either freak out or just start laughing at the absurdity of this? So
that, I don't remember exactly where it was, but we shot that like in some kind of museum somewhere. And it was our last day there. And it was like, it had to be about 1 a.m. or something, because we literally we couldn't shoot there anymore. So we had to finish everything that day. and there was a man upstairs just making hundreds of waffles. They brought in like a special like waffle chef. So I was so out of it that like, I was just disconnected from reality. There was I was on another planet during that scene.
Okay. You are famous for, and everybody has asked you about your many and delightful uses of the F word on the show. The timing, the variety, the setups. There's entire like videos devoted to like the top 20 Dylan F-bombs and top 20 Dylan lines. My personal favorite line that you've ever said on the show, admittedly, it is a popular choice, but the deadpan nature in which you say it is so perfect. I'm wondering can you guess what the line is, and then I'm going to ask you about it.
I don't know. I know this season, when I first hear about my Audi and I ask if he's dumb is a popular one.
What's the exact line on that? I think
remember. I just say he dumb, but no, I don't know.
Season 1, the egg bar is coveted as fuck.
Yes.
How many takes of that is there before you get like the timing of that? And you're dead. The best part is you're eating and you're just dead serious. It's quick. It's serious. It's deadpan. Yeah, the egg bar is coveted as fuck. Like you don't know that the egg bar is this coveted.
Yeah. There's we shoot a lot of takes of most scenes, so there are probably a lot of takes of that. But I do think the character, he's obviously, he's a funny character, but he is almost always dead serious. Like he's not joking. He's that. I think that's kind of what's funny about him is he is so dead serious about all of his opinions. But yes, that was a fun day. Fun little fact about that is at the time I was vegan. I was eating vegan. So they made these vegan deviled eggs for me, and they were not good. I was like, they looked amazing and they were totally fine, but they were about the look. And I was like, oh, I kind of wish you guys had asked me because I would have just eaten deviled eggs rather than this kind of, fancy scientific creation. But yeah, those were not real eggs.
Another, how many takes are there seen from the most recent season? Your innie gets to meet your Audi's wife in a few scenes, and they're very moving scenes. They're very interesting how you play the innie and the Audi Dylan differently, and how you approach her in those scenes. And in the climactic scene of that exchange, you propose to her, and it's as the show is setting up that the innies and the Audis are really different people and can have negative feelings toward each other and jealousy toward each other. And you propose to Gretchen, and she cries and leaves because this is an incredibly bizarre situation. And no, she cannot actually marry a second version of Dylan. Mm-hmm. And as she's walking out, you shriek this guttural shriek of Gretchen, and it's like high pitched, much higher than you've ever talked on the show. and the combination of it's one of those moments where the way you say it and the fact that it's a higher pitched thing and throatier is so moving. It just hits you in the gut. How many screams are there? Were you like aiming for that kind of tone? I'm always so curious, like how do moments like that happen? Because it's perfect.
Yeah, we definitely did that a few times. It was a thing where it's such a strange moment for the character where, he's the innies we always talk about are kind of childlike. And so, he was like naive enough to believe that he might, that proposing was like a good decision. And this is like it's kind of his first romance. He hasn't experienced anything like this before. So I think in that moment, it is this really kind of like childish scream of frustration and despair. And like, all this stuff is kind of crashing down on him. So we definitely did it a few times and tried it a few different ways. But no, I don't know that I was like specifically it just sort of that's what came out. It was just sort of this like childlike explosion of emotion, kind of.
Well, you nailed it. Season 1, you are the innie, responsible for triggering the overtime contingency. You are the one who has to stay in and pull a whole bunch of levers. And you're in this, what looks like a very uncomfortable stretch because the levers are on opposite sides from each other. And in the show, you're in that pose for 30 minutes because that's how long the innies are on the outside world, the other three innies. How long are you actually in that pose continuously while shooting? And was it as uncomfortable as it looked?
Yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable. I was never in it for more than a few minutes at a time. Just, we would, shoot some takes and then move on. But at the same time, it took us all day to shoot that sequence. So I was in and out of it for like 14 hours. The benefit I had was they actually built that set based on the width of my arms. So they like one day like measured me.
Your wingspan, like an NBA player, a draft prospect.
Yeah. They got I actually didn't get the stats, so I don't know what my wingspan is. I'm sure it's embarrassingly low, but they so it was like just at the edge of where I could reach. But to make it feel more real, I was really kind of like yanking on it. So it was very uncomfortable. It was a tough day, and I was sore the next day for sure. Hey,
look, like if I have to maintain a catcher squat for more than 15 seconds, I'm like, I don't understand how anybody does this. Like, forget posing like that. Okay, one more nerd out question. You mentioned on some pod I was listening to, somebody asked you, again, a classic question. What have you learned from watching and working with these iconic veteran stars like Patricia Arquette and Christopher Walken and John Turturro specifically? And you mentioned like being in the trailer next to John Turturro and all the voice warm-up exercises that he does to get ready for a scene. And then the whoever he was interviewing, I don't remember, moved on. I'm curious about what other things you've picked up, or does it acting not really work this way? Like I'm picturing, when fans love shows, we all picture two things that are probably wrong. Number one, all of you are best friends off the set and hang out all the time forever and ever and ever. And number two, you're all just like during breaks being like, hey, Patricia Arquette, I have this question for you about True Romance or this like acting technique that and that probably doesn't happen either. But are there any other like tricks techniques you've learned from them? Well,
I will say on our show, I genuinely do love everyone. John, I love, John and I have gotten quite close. I actually got him into the New York Liberty. He's like now a Liberty guy. As obviously he famously is a big Knicks fan, but we went to a playoff game together with Britt, who plays Helly on the show, and like had an incredible amount of fun. And there is some of that where people are asking questions. Like Adam is actually, he is like, he loves to ask people questions about, their work and stuff. I tend to kind of sit and watch. And I did learn a ton from John. Like he did do those vocal warm-ups. He also, he would tell me kind of fun little tricks of like, he'd be like, if they're shooting a scene and you're kind of only going to be there in the background and you want to go home, just like suggest that your character goes to the bathroom or something. Like little tricks like that, just about like saving your time and saving your energy. But also, I think from him, something that I really just he's such a great presence on set, and he makes everyone feel so comfortable and welcome. And he's so like encouraging that just like feeling that kind of like confidence from him totally allowed me to feel more comfortable, just in the work at all, because he's a guy who I've watched my whole life, so then you start to do scenes with him and you start to be like, oh, hey, we're doing this together, and he kind of believes in you. That adds so much to, your confidence, and lets you kind of like do things that you maybe wouldn't have been able to do without that.
By the way, I would say the most popular Dylan line is, I think it's your delts are looking sick as fuck, and my Audi definitely does muscle shows. That might be the number one most popular Dylan line.
That was John and I. They kind of just let us like riff in the background, because I think Britt is like doing she's up to one of her schemes in season 1, and we're kind of just like blabbering about our muscles. But yeah, that was a fun day.
All right, before you go, are you still doing stuff at UCB? I know you've done a lot of UCB. How often are you still doing that?
Yeah, I still do it occasionally. They didn't have a space in New York for a while during COVID. Their theaters closed, but now they're back up. They're in the East Village, and I do the show AskCat occasionally on Friday nights. And then I do another show on Sunday nights called Rat Scraps, which is like a bunch of the people who used to do AskCat. We do similar show on Sunday nights at this theater on the Lower East Side called Caveat. But when I'm in town and not working, I try and do those shows as often as I can.
Anything else coming up that you would like to promote in the world of Zack Cherry, other than season 3 of Severance, which I assume is coming out in 6 months? I assume you guys have gotten right to it, and my appetite will be satiated immediately.
Well, I don't have a timeline on that, but yeah, certainly everyone be ready for season 3 because I'm excited to get to it.
Zack, any last NBA thoughts? We're going to have the MVP announced this week. Knicks Celtics starts tonight. In Boston. Any other playoff thoughts or anything you want to get out before I let you go?
I mean, I guess is it just going to be? Are we headed down an inevitable path of Thunder Celtics? Can anyone beat the Celtics?
I think the Cavs would have a chance. I mean, that was my preseason finals pick. That was the chalk preseason finals pick. The Cavs, the Darius Garland thing. He was out again in game 1, and Indiana won that game last night in rousing fashion. I think the Cavs could put up a good fight against the Celtics. I think the Knicks are in trouble. I just made my prediction for that series with Howard Beck. It was not the Knicks. But look, and the Thunder, they get to play the best player in the world now. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I have seen nothing to take me off that path yet.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So we'll see. It'll be fun to see it play out.
Zack Cherry, this has been a real pleasure. You're just tremendous on Severance. Now I'm going to look for everything else you do. Thanks for lending us some of your time. You are now a busy and coveted as fuck guest on these kind of shows. Let's be in touch, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Truly, this was a blast.
What a treat. Zack Cherry was. Severance is amazing. He's amazing. Congratulations to him on his success. And that's it for today's Zach Lowe Show. We'll be back Thursday talking everything that happens in the NBA playoffs between now and then, and looking ahead to the first real weekend of the second round. Things are heating up. The best teams are alive and battling each other. It's going to be fun. We'll be here on the Zach Lowe Show. Must be 21 and over and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and over and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.